Today on Homeworthy, we're exploring gut-renovated homes that seamlessly blend history with modern design. First, Saxton and Dan Murphy take us through their beautifully expanded 1920s home in Texas, blending original charm with refined, playful decor. Then, beauty guru Michelle Trinh shares her stunning New York City apartment, transformed with a neutral palette and curated maximalist touches inspired by her Parisian experiences. Next, Stephanie Stallard gives us a tour of her early 1900s home in Texas, where a passion for restoration meets budget-friendly, high-impact design. Finally, interior designer Michelle Gage invites us into her gorgeous 1927 stone colonial near Philadelphia, where she and her husband's DIY renovation work shines. Watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, Homeworthy. Welcome to Highland Park, Texas, and our home. My name is Adam Saxton.
And I'm Dan Murphy. Welcome to the Beverly Casa. Why don't you come on in and take a look with us?
Welcome to our home. It was built in 1929, and we spent the past 2 years renovating it, expanding it, adding on to it, and we hope to make it work for our family for many years to come and for another 100 years here in Highland Park.
We bought the home just after Christmas in 2021 and moved in about 7 months ago, in December of 2023. So we're excited to have you all here and look forward to showing you around.
And we're starting here in our entryway. The first thing to notice here, a lot of people notice, are these marble black and white and gray floors. These are different stones that we designed in a custom pattern and then chose the individual stones for the pattern.
This room, the structure of it is really identical to what it was when we bought the house. We'll kind of point out some things as we go around in rooms that changed and such like that, but really the staircase, the room, the structure is identical to how it was 100 years ago.
The house is sort of a Spanish, Italian, European blend mixed with some Texas influences that was popular in this area. You'll see that on the outside with the tile roofs and the brick and the carved limestone work. The inside's a pretty traditional floor plan, where this original entry space was where everyone entered into the home. It's completely unchanged from when it was built. The original curved staircase, it was really one of our favorite things about the house. When we came in, we realized it could be kind of reimagined and brought up to date. And we found this 16-foot long custom chandelier from a company called Boyd Lighting to fill the whole entry space. And I think it really is a great way to blend the old and the new with this modern fixture in this space that is unchanged for, almost 100 years.
And the light fixture is kind of like probably about 100 things in the house that I could tell 10-minute stories on, but I'll bring up a few. It's a spot where we had a tall area there because it's 2 stories, but you have a pretty narrow space between the railings. So finding something that was long but was not wide and kind of sticking into the walkway was a challenge. So we had a lot of those kind of fun projects to find things that worked for the space and also accomplished what we were looking for. And I think most of them we ended up pretty happy with.
I wanted to talk a little bit about this carpeting. You'll see a lot of menswear influences throughout our house. Both of Dan and I are men's fashion fans, so you'll see that theme throughout. And it starts here in the entry with this houndstooth wool carpet. The rest of the color palette here is really creamy, neutral whites. I think it accents the woodwork nicely and creates a calm base for all of these interesting textures and metals and marbles and materials that we have going on in here. There's also little touches of black throughout our house. Our door frames, our doors and window frames are all black. and you'll kind of see little touches of black repeated throughout with a pretty neutral background.
The walls in here are Swiss coffee. You'll see that's kind of our base color that you'll see throughout a number of rooms, and then we tried to spice it up with some additions in other spots.
Okay, we are standing in our lower gallery, which connects kind of the old front of the house to the back that we'll see later, which is where we added on in the rear. This continues all the creamy white paneling that we saw throughout the entryway, again painted Benjamin Moore Swiss coffee. The floors are 5-inch white oak floors, and they're laid here in a herringbone pattern. We wanted to keep the gallery really to feel a little bit like an art gallery. So while the walls and the ceiling have some detail and texture, otherwise it's pretty clean. And by having a herringbone pattern here, it creates some interest without us having to layer a rug or find a rug for this space. That's one of the things I really like about it.
In this space was really probably what I would say the most dramatic change to the architecture of the first floor and what was the old house. Because as I mentioned in the entry, you used to walk right into a living room, or a dining room, excuse me, that walked into a kitchen and a family room. And now we brought this kind of wide open space that you could see out to the front of the house and the streets and into the dining room and the kitchen. And it really kind of gave you that connectivity to walk around the house, kind of make it a little bit more fluid and appreciate both the old that was here and the new that we added on in the back of the house.
Let's talk about this table here in the front window. And we knew when we first were designing the house and saw the floor plan coming together that this would be a really big focal point here in the front window. We saw this table at a company in Los Angeles called Blackman Cruise, that is a design company and gallery, and really liked it, thought it was super cool, but then left and didn't think much about it. Later on Father's Day, Dan and our sons gave me a box that had like a dinosaur toy leg and a piece of wood glued on top of it, and it opened the box and I was so confused I had no idea what they were talking about. And actually Dan had bought the table because he knew I really liked it and it'd be perfect for this space. So I figured it out. They couldn't put the table in the box, and the table was a long lead time and had to be ordered, but they created a little sculpture for me anyway.
It looks a lot better than the prototype did, but we couldn't get it delivered on time.
And then the vase that we have sitting on it is from my mom, my parents. They have one in their house, and then she gave us the second one for our house. So this is a kind of a special focal point in our home. Yep. The ceiling in this room these are Venetian plaster, and it's been it's a glossier finish. It's more of a shinier finish than sometimes Venetian plaster is matte, and this one is a glossy Venetian plaster finish. Everything is the same color. All the paint is the same color. There's just slight textural differences between the sheens of the paint, depending on what surface it's on and how it's applied. But it's all the Benjamin Moore Swiss coffee again.
One of the things we did in this room is kind of in creativity. We used, there's a lot of space here, but we used every inch of it. And so you won't even see any closets other than in the bedrooms. And so there's 2 of these that the builder helped us figure out a way to do a basically panel door that you can open and get into a coat closet here. And so it's nice that we have the space as needed when we have coats. You don't need them that much in Dallas, so being hidden was okay. But it still keeps the look of the hallway. And we did the same thing in the entryway with our AV closet. So you could put the stuff that you needed in the house, but keep it out of the way and not make a storage room a focal point.
The photograph is a David Yarrow photograph that was photographed here in Dallas, downtown, a few miles from where we're standing. And we think that's really cool to have a photograph from one of our favorite artists that was shot in Dallas. And Dan is from Chicago, so we also have work by the same photographer in the dining room that is just opposite the wall, and it's really cool to see both of them in the same space.
We actually, our first date and where we got engaged was at the art gallery that sells David Yarrow's work, and unbeknownst to us, we didn't realize until we planned the event, we were both big fans of his before we met, so it was kind of a fateful moment when Adam asked if we wanted to stop in an art gallery on the way to dinner.
Yeah. Neither one of us are interior designers. We both have careers and day jobs, and this is not what we do. But we love our home. We love to have people in our home, and we really wanted to make it ours and make it unique to us. So that's what we did here. Both of us have really similar taste, and we gravitate towards the same type of thing. I probably choose more of the initial design kind of inspiration and look we're going for, but that would end up just being a big mess if you didn't have Dan to have some detail in order to the process to pull it together.
There's a little more practicality from me. So sometimes we had a really good idea from Adam, and I had to tell him that's a great idea, but remember, we have to live here, we have dogs, we have kids. How do we make that a home instead of a museum? And so I agree, like Adam said, we were aligned on all the big stuff that in the 2 years we never had a big disagreement or argument over things. I tried to fabricate them a few times because it seemed like it'd be more fun, kind of like a reality TV series. But in the end, things came together and we agreed on almost everything, and really were able to bring what both of us wanted into it. And I would agree with Adam. He had a little bit more of that design taste, but he's in the restaurant business, I'm a banker, so by no means is this our background and where we focus for our day jobs.
And so what we learned is that you can be resourceful and you can figure things out on your own. I knew that about us. I didn't know everything about how to design a home and how to choose everything and how to work with an architect. But I knew that we could figure out any questions we had. I knew that Dan and I would figure out the right people to ask or the right resources to go to. And so we just kind of taught ourselves along the way. And the results, it turned out pretty good.
Moving to this end of the gallery, we have over here a powder room, and on this side a wine cellar. And both of our dads are big wine fanatics, so we've kind of grown up with that. And Adam and I both enjoy wine a lot. And so we knew we wanted space to store the wine in the house. And as we looked at options, and this is one of the things we actually went through a few iterations with the architect on how a bar or a wine cellar would look, kind of settled on this area here where we wanted it to be pronounced but not the center of attention in the room. And so I think from our perspective we got that. And really the very first thing we picked before we even had the cellar was these door handles. They're from a brand in New York called Ochre, and we had seen them when we were in New York, and just that, I think they call them the wooden Viking handles.
Viking, yeah, it looks like a spear.
So these, big, very pronounced handles kind of made it a little bit more than just your kind of typical glass door wine cellar. And so this is something that we spend a lot of time in. We're in here, at least once a week, and have recently got everything organized in here so we know where it's at. And
it's always cold in there too,
yeah.
So which helps in Texas.
You can always step in there in the summer.
And this is our formal powder room right off the main entry, and one of the spaces that we really spent a lot of time thinking about the detail and the design of, is we knew almost everyone who comes to our house is going to visit the bathroom at some point, and we want it to be a special, fun place. This is a vintage Baccarat chandelier that is about as old as our house, that we found on First Dibs and ordered. We like to find stuff all over the world on First Dibs and bring it to our home. The wallpaper is Gucci, and we knew we wanted to use it. Probably we picked the wallpaper. Well, a lot of this we did in our house. We picked one thing that we knew we wanted to use, and then made the rest of the stuff in the room work with it. So we knew we wanted to use the wallpaper, and we kind of designed the powder room around it.
Kind of brought in the wall coloring and the color of the stone, knowing that we had one thing. And so I think that was probably one of the things we learned early on, that it was really helpful if you made at least one decision. Like, start somewhere so you have a non-negotiable in the rooms, and then we could fill in the gaps around it, because sometimes we look at places where we'd say, we want these 5 things, and you throw them together and it's a mess. And so starting with what's most important, or a first choice, made everything flow together a lot easier.
This chair sits in our gallery too, and like the table in the front that we showed you earlier with the Talon table, is more like a piece of art than a piece of furniture, and that's why we put it here in the gallery. It's designed by Philippe Starck for Dior. and we bought it when we were in LA one time.
We get a lot of comments that it only has one arm, so it's
Yeah.
a good conversation starter
Right.
for people as they come in too.
But Dior did not discount it despite having only one arm.
So now we're moving into the dining room, which is off the lower gallery. And so this was a space that we knew we really wanted to have a formal dining room and a space to come together, not only as a family or when we had people over. Like we mentioned, we really enjoy entertaining at the house, and it's a good way to, it's a nice way to say we're homebodies. We like to be at home, we like to have people over, and so when we can entertain nicely, that works out and makes people want to come over as well. So this is a perfect space for that. We've had a few formal dinners in here already, and look forward to keep using the space many more times to come.
There's a lot of things going on in here to kind of create mood and texture, and to make it just a cool, interesting space. Starting with the ceiling. The ceiling is what people talk about the most. This is a hand-painted paper by a company in Kansas City called Porter Telio. It was hand-painted by them right there. We had it custom dyed to match the paint Faro and Ball downpipe, which is also on the walls in high gloss lacquer. And then they dyed fabric the same to match the same Faro and Ball downpipe for the chair seats, and then hand painted them to match the ceiling. So the seats on these chairs match what's above them on the ceiling, and we think that is a really cool detail. These were the dining room chairs from our last house, so we recovered them with the paper, the same pattern as the ceiling, but other than that, they're the same as they were before.
One thing we did in this room, we have speakers throughout. We did a Sonos system in the house, and because of the wallpaper, we didn't really want to have this big white grill on the ceiling, and so we actually did these speakers that you can't see. They're called Invisible Line by Sonance, and they're actually under the drywall that's under the wallpaper. And when you turn on the music, you would never know that they weren't a speaker right there on the outside, but they're completely invisible. So as long as none of them breaks, it's gonna be fantastic, but we'll see when one of those goes out, we have to replace it, how we figure that one out.
The table was custom made and designed by us. It was made by Keith Fritz in Indiana. It's made American handcrafted woodwork, which is something we really love. We used furniture made in America as much as possible in our house. Most of the large furniture pieces were made in America, and I can tell you who made them, and so we're really proud of that. This piece here is a Ralph Lauren bar cart that we display our collection of Christoffel silver on. And
that was a last minute ad. We kind of were walking around the store and saw that, and we had this spot here that we knew eventually we needed something, but it wasn't a move-in necessity, and saw that and thought it'd be perfect.
Absolutely.
The other thing we added kind of late was these head chairs that we knew we wanted to seat 10, and so when we moved in, we had 8 chairs, and we were in Paris end of the year at the flea market, and you're really not looking for anything in particular, and one of the stalls, these weren't even for sale. These were the chairs that the guys who were running the shop were eating their lunch sandwich in out front.
And smoking.
Yeah, and we just saw them, we thought those look like they'd go great. Like it just kind of had that same vibe. They're old, they're worn. So we got these, had them recovered in a gray to kind of go with the theme, and help bring that finishing touch to the table in here, which worked out perfect.
There's another little piece of extra detail, this tape on the side here of the cushions. That's another example of just a place wherever we try to find just like one more extra detail to add to something, we usually do that, and they did a great job putting that on there. So again, the color is all the same. So the ceiling, all the trim, and the walls are all that Faro and Ball down pipe. Even though there's a lot going on in here, that sense of one unifying color palette, I think, creates some cohesion.
And given all of that kind of dark gray, dark brown, that really leads us to the rug that we chose, because we knew we wanted to bring a little bit of color in this. We didn't want it to be so monochromatic. And so we spent a lot of time, probably the most time in rugs in the house was for the dining room, looking at different options and deciding what could go so that you could bring in that pop of color without it, kind of looking obnoxious or anything. And so ended up settling on this that you want to talk about.
This rug was handmade in India. It's the thing we waited the longest on. It probably took about a year.
Yeah.
And it's from a company called Sheer Rugs, I believe is what they're called, and they're based in Chicago. We found this chandelier. I saw it in a window in New York when we were walking by, and I made note of the company. It's made there. They're called Olympia. And one of the things I really like about it, again, it was difficult to choose a chandelier because we have this abstract thing going on the ceiling, this shiny, high glossy walls. We have crystal sconces here from Baccarat. And it was really difficult to find lighting that made sense with all of that. And by having this kind of funky abstract chandelier that is kind of intentionally abstract is what in some way unifies everything else. It really pulls together. It goes great with the design of the room. It's a conversation piece and we love it.
And your obvious choice for a formal dining room is probably often a glass or a crystal chandelier, and we looked at that, but really like the idea of something different, a little bit unexpected. It's probably not, if you saw the room without a chandelier, what you would expect to be in the room. And so it gave it a little bit extra color and just kind of individual personality that we appreciated.
This is an old Elo mirror that we had, and flanked by two Baccarat sconces. So those are mixing new and old things, and an old Art Deco kind of 1920s, 1930s buffet that we also had that is a similar period to when the house was originally built. So we're happy to have it and use it again. And we used things that we had before and as much as possible throughout our home and mix things in. And I really find that if you buy stuff that you like and you're designing a home that is your taste, then you're going to find a place to use those things no matter where you live and what the space is.
So moving into the kitchen family room area of the house, this is really everything that was brand new. This was kind of the ground up construction. The original house kind of ended at this wall. And so we knew that what you didn't have 100 years ago was that open floor plan, entertaining family room, kitchen area. And so that was something that we knew from the start we were going to have to add on. And so that's what this space became.
Moving into the kitchen. This is where inevitably everybody ends up every time. Everybody says that about their house, and it's true here. And because of that, I love this huge island that we did here. We have seats for 6 people to sit around it at these bar stools, and this huge, massive slab of soapstone on top. It just, it really is the place where we spend most of our time, right here at the kitchen island. We wanted the island to feel different than the rest of the kitchen cabinetry. And so the details here, it being made out of walnut and then stained a dark walnut color, make it feel a little bit more like a piece of furniture or a floating island than appliances, but it still has modern appliances built into it. Like I love this here is our ice machines, and we have your choice of cubed or crushed, so nobody has to argue about their favorite ice. What else in the kitchen, Dan?
So a big wall of appliances over here with the fridge and freezer. And one of the things we knew is we really liked that kind of metal exposed fridge and freezer. And you can never have enough room for food and everything. So did the full size next to each other. And then some more fridge drawers down here and a coffee machine. Adam has coffee all the time. I think I've used it about twice since we moved in. I like to make a cup of coffee and forget it until it's cold. But it's a nice feature that it's there and ready to go.
Another thing I tell people all the time, and it's true of the kitchen too, I said it earlier, if you pick one thing that you love, you can kind of build the rest of the design around it. And this stone is that for this room, the stone that is on the backsplash by the range and that is on all of these outer cabinets. It's from Ansax slabs. It has this beautiful purples and greens, even a little bit of gray, creams and whites. And basically we picked that and then we pulled the color palette for the kitchen from that. We did our kitchens this green color, the cabinets on the outer, and it really all ties together nicely. And everybody loves this stone. We love it. This is a drip ledge. I've never seen this before, but you can learn stuff on TV too. You can learn stuff on Netflix. That's where I found this out on Dream Home Makeover. Shay McGee had this in her house. I thought it was a great idea. I don't know if it does anything to stop dripping, but it sure looks nice. And it's another excuse to use this beautiful stone.
The sink area was one of those spots that posed some challenges in the regulations and things you needed for getting your contracts and everything. And so what we learned was, because we had no back wall, there was nowhere to put an outlet, and these two side walls were too far from the sink. And so we ended up having to do these pop-up outlets that are in the counter that turned out to be pretty cool. You know, you have the outlet ready for appliances or things like that, and they're within, I believe it's 36 inches is what you need for a sink. And so it was one of those things that took a lot of collaboration with the stone fabricator and the builder and the architect to figure out where they go and how it comes in, especially since that was not quite the 11th hour, but maybe the 7th hour part of the process. And so just one of many things where we had to figure out how you achieve the requirements that you have and not just the pretty things that you want in the house.
Why don't we talk about these over here by the stove. These cutting boards, we built in this area to have these custom wood chopping blocks. And then once you have them built, these slots, you have to have a cutting board that is made perfectly sized. So these were handmade in Michigan for us, and they're these beautiful walnut boards that we can use, and then they slide right back in here perfectly. And so that is both decorative and functional. The hardware mix in here is something a lot of people like. It's all unlacquered brass hardware, but depending on what cabinet it's on, we have latches, we have knobs, we have cup pulls, more traditional handle pulls. So that mix of hardware all being in the same brass, it's all Armac Martin from the UK, and it looks interesting and old and new at the same time. I really like the brass.
I'll never forget the day we decided to start looking at the hardware. It was a Friday. We lived in an apartment where we were building the house. And I said, let's open a bottle of wine, pick all the hardware for the house, and then watch this movie that I wanted to watch. This is 5 o'clock maybe. 3 o'clock that morning, Adam said, we have to go to bed. Like, I've had enough of hardware, and we were not halfway through it. And so it took a few of those kind of days, and we realized that, to his point, you could have just said, let's do all knobs and have them all the same, but we wanted a little bit more detail and, differentiation and stuff. And so figuring out where is the handle going to end and where is the pull going to start when every cabinet is not a mirror image of itself, posed to be a little bit more legwork than we expected. But
we learned that we're both kind of obsessed with and love hardware, and so now we do that all the time. If we buy a piece of furniture, the first thing we do is start talking about changing the hardware, and it's a fun detail for sure. How do you make a house a home? For us, I think it mostly filling it with stuff that you like and stuff that's representative of you, and picking colors and making choices and doing things that you like and that you stand behind. No matter if those are what are on trend or what other people like or not. One thing for sure, a bunch of people told us that you could not use two different countertops in a kitchen and two different stains and cabinet colors. You can do one or the other, so you could mix countertop materials, have one on the island and one on the other, or you could do the same and have outer cabinets one color, but then the island needs to be the same if you're going to mix the stones. We decided not to pay attention to that rule. Our island is a different color than our outer cabinets, and then the stone is different too. I think overall the work looks great for us, and we wanted it to be that way, and so it's ours. And I think that that's really what most people should do when they're approaching their home, is to do the thing that they like. They're the ones living there, they're the ones paying for it, they're the ones who have to be there every day, and it's a reflection of you, your family, and your personality. And if you do stuff with it that you love, then the end result will be reflective of that.
I think we made sure too that there was really no spaces that were here because they have to be, and instead they were spaces that were here because we wanted them to be. And I'm sure I know I can think of plenty of houses you go in where there's a room that you're never allowed in, or there's a space where just even if you're allowed in there, you don't use it. And that often could be the formal living room. And instead of having a formal living room, we did a library office where we spend a lot of our time. And I work from home a couple days a week, and so I work there, and we'll sit on the couch in there and entertain with people. And so I think that idea of using spaces in a way that you know you'll be able to use them and get value out of was key. And we really have very few inches of the house that we wouldn't use on almost a daily basis.
Off the kitchen, we have our pantry. The same stone that is in the kitchen is here on the countertop in the butler's pantry. And we integrated the sink out of the same stone just to continue the same material. The same material goes straight down into the sink and then straight up the wall for a slab backsplash. I think that makes a really clean, pretty effect, and is the best way to highlight the natural stone when you just lay it out and leave it alone.
This was a room that we really wanted to have be a little bit of a transition from the functional, more usable kitchen to the more formal dining room. And so you have a room here that has this pretty stone and also has bags of chips and M&Ms hidden behind the
Yeah, that's where we actually
here.
have to keep our food. I'll show you where we keep our food. People say, they come in here and say, well, where do you actually keep your stuff in the pantry? It's all behind these cabinets. So if you look in here, we have these baskets that are labeled with different ingredients and things in jars. These jars have walnut tops, so we found jars that have walnut tops, again, to repeat from the island woodwork, and the cutting boards and just walnut accents, kind of the wood accents throughout the home. So we try to carry that through in every detail.
Yeah. And then over here, we keep more of the everyday servingware. This was a recent remodel from the organization. We had things kind of all over the place in the kitchen that we figured out a better place to bring things in one spot so that when you're looking for a bowl and a plate, they were in one cabinet instead of 3 drawers, depending on what the occasion was.
We lined our cabinets everywhere with cork, which is a really nice, just creates a soft surface. And I think that feels more kind of natural and organic than using plastic shelf liners or something like that. So it's also pretty easy to roll out and use. The wallpaper is Gucci, and there's just this one little wall and spot of it here. The house was already done. We weren't going to do wallpaper in here, and we saw this wallpaper, and it worked with the green from the kitchen. So we decided to add it.
That's a sentence I've heard Adam say a lot. The house is done, we're not going to do wallpaper, and then a week later there's a wallpaper guy.
You can do wallpaper,
so
I mean, there's never enough.
You'll see a few rooms that we might comment that they've been added after the fact, but it brings a nice little touch and kind of wraps up the room, I think, compared to what it was with just the white walls originally.
The paint color of the cabinets in here is Benjamin Moore creamy white, and they're all the same color, exactly the same. And then we had a local company, Fashion Glass and Mirrors, fabricated these antique mirror panels to fit into these big doors.
And the light fixture in here was another vintage piece that we found. I believe it's from Austria. Probably around the same age of the house as well, but a few spots we found where we liked a new fixture to kind of tie things together, but this, just like the powder room, led itself to something that was old, vintage, and had kind of that small scale to it. So now we're here in the mudroom, which is really where we enter the house from the garage in the back and come into the kitchen. And this is a space where we did these antique tiles that were from France that we had found to really give it kind of that homey, older, it's a floor where we don't have to worry about it as much. You don't have to worry about scuffing up the wood or cracking the brand new marble. This floor has seen more than we'll ever throw at it. So it's nice to have this space that's really probably the most utilitarian of the house, where we're coming in muddy with, the kids have football cleats and things like that, and the dogs are slobbering all around. And so it's a space that really serves its purpose for that.
It's a great way to use an old material that's already aged for you, and so you can just keep adding your age to it, not have to worry about it looking perfect all the time. And we sourced this reclaimed tile from Patet Architecturals here in Dallas. The cabinets in here are painted the same green as the kitchen, and our hardware maker, Armac Martin, also makes these grills that we inserted in there just to add a little bit more detail in the mudroom cabinetry. And it's because the reason to have a grill is because this is a stackable washer and dryer unit in here, and so that needed to vent a little bit, and we just repeated it on that side. So we hid a washer and dryer unit in these cabinets, and it just tucks away. So it's there when you need it, and then gone when you don't.
And then on the other side, it's the cleaning supplies, the stuff you don't usually want to see behind a door. So it was nice that it could look like that, but not be visible as you walked into the room behind a glass wall or something like that.
We have a beadboard backsplash here that's painted the same color as the cabinets, just for a little bit of extra texture. And then the backing of the bench area is white oak to bring in a natural material here to the mudroom too. So we have a natural wood stain. It's the same as the door, which is also a white oak Dutch door that comes into here. We'll leave the kitchen, mudroom, pantry area and show you our family room and bar.
So moving from the kitchen into the family room, this kind of transition space here, we decided really towards the end to put in a family dining table. Originally we were going to have a little bit more lounge seating, but the idea of eating at the formal dining room every day with kids, that was one of those things that wasn't quite as practical as we thought in the beginning. So this has been nice to have this extra space. It makes for a little bit more casual dining. And so as we move into the family room area itself, this was an area where we spend a lot of time here with just the family or with friends, kind of hanging out, watching TV, sitting by the fireplace.
The first thing we bought here was this vintage marble coffee table. And again, that's kind of the colors of that served as the inspiration for the rest of the materials in the room. So we kind of pulled the same reds, that is rich browns, golds, ochres. You pulled those colors out of the marble and then used it throughout the room.
And the table, it's a marble called Breccia Vendôme.
Yep.
That hundreds of years ago, the only people that could buy that marble were the French royal family. And so you'll see a lot of it at the Palace of Versailles and places like that. Today, anybody who walks into a store can get it, but it was cool that it had that history. In this piece, we don't know exactly how old it was, but we bought this old as well. And even to the point of when we brought it in the day we moved in, it was so old that some of the joints broke and fell apart that day on the truck. And so it worked out. We were actually glad that it broke.
It wouldn't be moving day without a disaster.
We were glad that it broke as it came into the house instead of a week later when we didn't have the moving company there anymore. But
they glued it back together.
Another thing the stone fabricator worked some miracles on, and you'd never even know that it was 100 years old at this point.
And in Dallas also, we were lucky to find this old Turkish Uşak rug. It is the oldest thing in the house. It's from the late 1800s. And they call it hotel lobby sized, or because it's large enough to fill the whole room. We were lucky enough to find something in the color palette that we wanted that was also just really a perfect space. And it's amazing that this rug, 150 years old probably, is here in our house, and it looks like it was meant for this space.
Yeah, I can only imagine the number of different homes and such it's been in the past, and it's always funny. I spilled something one day once, and I got down to clean it up, and I realized there's like 4 other spots of who knows what's been there in the last couple hundred years. So it's a nice vintage piece that really kind of shows you, old can be lived in and still look nice and give a new look.
These chairs are from Rose Tarlow in California. They have this beautiful green leather on them that I really like. And again, because this is all one open space with the kitchen, it pulls some of the green that is in the kitchen back over to this area. We have a big, giant, comfortable sofa that we can sit on, and a couple lounge chairs over there. These are also Rose Tarlow, the both chairs, and are from the same maker on both sides.
And as we looked at furniture in here, we really wanted to bring in some different layers and some detail to things. An obvious choice in a family room could often be just a big single sectional around a coffee table or something. But we like the idea of kind of different groups of seating and such, and making use of the space that we have. We have some room in the family room, but it's not a massive family room space, and so being able to bring a couple different pairs of things together made it feel a little bit more cohesive.
And then again, trying to choose materials and have things made that all work together. This little walnut wood detail on the light fixture matches the walnut that's in the kitchen. And then the metal has this really cool brass ombre effect on the metal here. And when we had a fireplace screen made, we had the guy who made the fireplace screen just replicate that here. So we try to find like a little detail or something that we like and then repeat it different places. I really like things that are not made out of a material that you wouldn't expect. The lamps are a great example of those because those are suede. I'd never seen a suede lamp before. So I thought that was really cool, and they dim just like this. So the mix of that soft suede material and the hard brass is a cool composition, and those are apparatus from New York.
Again, another spot where we had some existing, some new. That's a piece that we've had for a while. This was a piece, we actually did a home tour in Dallas last year, and one of the houses had a piece of art above the fireplace that when we left, both of us said to each other, we really liked the style of that one above the fireplace. And so we kind of figured out, tracked down who the artist was, and it worked out that the woman's name is Kristen Moore, and she's local here in Dallas. So we got to go to her workshop, see some of her stuff, and meet her, and found a piece that she had that we liked.
Yeah, this is a painting, not a photograph.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's a photograph. It's a painting because it looks so realistic. And one of our favorite places to visit is Los Angeles, and this reminds us. This was a painting that she did of a street in Beverly Hills, and so it reminds us of being out there. And then the other large painting in this house is in this room is there. On the opposite wall, that's a British artist called Jake Wood Evans. Just his work, I've loved his work forever. His use of color and the movement in it. He kind of pulls from these historical themes. This is inspired by an old Turner ship painting, and I have been a fan of his for a long time and followed him forever. And when we moved into the house, the gallery in London that works with him, Unit Gallery, was able to find this piece for us that is perfect for the wall, and we're so happy to have it. Again, the colors of the painting and the coffee table, it just all works together like it was meant to be.
So off the family room now, we'll step out into the patio in the backyard.
This is, again, really an extension of our family room. We wanted to create this covered space where the family room, when the weather's nice, we leave these doors open, people can spill straight out in here, and this just becomes, again, another entertaining space. We have our grill and cooking area all over there, and then
all of these openings too have roller shades in them that come down. So
yeah, I was going to show you.
Okay.
So in Texas, that's how we keep the mosquitoes away and can still hang out outside in the summertime. We tried to really make this like a 4-season space. These are recessed heaters in the ceiling, the fans, the screens. So kind of depending on the time of year and the weather and what we have going on, you can use this space a lot of different ways. And again, the goal was just to be able to come straight from our family room, open these big double sliding doors, and just have this all really function as one space here in the home.
So in the backyard off the main patio, we have our pool and another smaller patio. And we actually use this one even way more than the big patio. It's much more cozy if it's just 2 or 4 of you.
One of the things that's interesting or good to look at while we're back here is that all of this is brand new constructions. This is not 100 years old. All of this is less than 1 year old. But we tried to build this with materials that would match the front of the house and look like it had been here. Even this brick, we found out the brick that the original front of the house is made out of, that quarry is still operating and they're still pulling brick out of it. So we sourced the exact same brick that the house was built out of all those years ago, and it's made here. So we really wanted the architectural style of what we added in the back to match really well with what was existing in the front of the house.
Yeah. In the back of the house, in the garage, there's a gym and a pool bath, as well as an extra bedroom and some storage space upstairs. So it was a nice feature that the house had, the carriage house, and we're able to get use out of that area to expand the things that didn't quite fit in the main house to still have those features.
We are back inside and we're headed into the bar. Dan, what do you want to tell us about the bar?
Sure. So, this was a space we knew we really wanted to have a wet bar in the house and a space that was a little bit more exciting than just here's the bar and some storage. And so we spent a lot of time kind of detailing this. And, one thing in particular, you'll see this countertop has a really cool edge detail. And we had, this was another thing that we had just seen online and thought that looks really cool. Let's do that for a countertop. And we told our stone fabricator and they said, sure, we'll figure it out. And we learned a few months later that they had never done it before either. So they had to truly figure it out, get the tools that they needed, figure out how to do that. But it gave a really nice detail to this. And that's the counters you'll see behind Adam here, really extends into the family room, that we kind of made this. The goal was to be seamless, where you don't really feel like you're walking into a separate room when you come into the wet bar from the family room, or the same idea as you exit on the other side into the library. And so, it's a bit of a transition space between the two, where we have room behind these reeded glass to store all of our glassware, as well as plenty of cabinets to keep some of the tools and stuff that you need in a bar. And then we also put in another Sub-Zero wine fridge here for really the whites, the rosés, the champagnes, so that we had space in here. Kind of think of that. A lot of that's the more casual. We're sitting outside having a glass of white wine by the pool and such.
The color of these cabinets is like an ugly brown, and it's fun to use a color that you wouldn't expect to come out the way it does. A lot of people would think a brown is just kind of like an ugly, muddy color. This one is a really dark, saturated one. But then by doing it in this high gloss lacquer finish, it adds a little glamour to that ugly, muddy brown, and I think the effect is really nice. And then we found this wallpaper again. There's very little space to do wallpaper in here, but if you give me a couple walls, a corner, then we'll take it. And we found this Fornacetti wallpaper. It's called Cocktails, and if you're picking wallpaper for a bar, one called Cocktails seems like it's a good idea to me.
Couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah. And then that moves straight into our library, which serves as, for us, like a formal living room, work from home space, a lounge. It's a little bit of everything, and it's right off the family room and the wet bar, and it's one of the spaces in the house that is exactly the same as it was 100 years ago. This functioned as the formal living room when the house was built. It had the bay window in front, and so the shape and size of this room is exactly as it has been. We built a whole wall of bookshelves here, again, to both store books, and if you're going to call it the library, you need to have some library effect. The paint color here is most people's favorite navy is Benjamin Moore Hell Navy, and that's what the color is in here as well. These shades on the sconces here, as well as the lamp on the desk, are also painted to match the Hell Navy paint, all the same.
And because this room is, a multitasking room, it had to serve a few purposes. And so, there are days where one of us is home doing real work and, maybe on a video call or on a conference call or something. And so we still wanted the room to be open and flow to the rest of the house. But given that, we put in these big double doors in the back that, you could close when you need to and kind of close off the space, keep it a little quieter. And then also into the wet bar, we put in sliding doors there so that in the majority of the times you're not going to need those. But when you want to keep out a little bit of the noise from the rest of the house, you can do that. And it was, I think these doors in particular, we really liked the walnut with these big knobs. Even if they're never closed, it's kind of a cool statement piece to it.
And these chairs too, again, speaking to the multifunction nature of the space, if you're sitting here having some drinks by the fire with friends, they can turn this way, but they have little casters on the front, and so you can also just turn them, and if someone's sitting and working at the desk, you can use it that way too. So when you're remodeling or using an old house and using some of the existing space that's there, and you're trying to have one space serve multiple functions, it's helpful to think about the furniture and the ways the furniture too can have multiple uses as well. Tell the story about this scarf, Dan.
Sure. So this is a vintage Hermes scarf by the artist is named Kermit Oliver, and he is actually one of the first not only American but African American artists to do scarves for Hermes, and lived here in Texas. And so this was one Adam had really liked this, and I finally found it in an auction that was going live when we were going to see Santa Claus with the boys. So we're all in line to see Santa, and I'm like playing on my phone over here at this auction before Christmas, and I could see all three of them looking at me like, what is he doing? Why is he not paying attention to us? But it worked out, kind of a nice vintage piece for the library to pull things together there. And the color palette was perfect as well.
We really wanted, Dan for sure wanted a Chesterfield sofa. If one of us have more opinions on furniture, it's definitely me. But so when Dan gives a furniture opinion, then we tried to heed it, and he really wanted a Chesterfield sofa. This one from Ralph Lauren is kind of like what I would consider the prototype, perfect, classic Chesterfield sofa in this buttery brown leather, and it'll just keep getting better with age too. This table here is an interesting way to combine different things and use different things. So it sits on these metal snake legs that we had from another table, but we needed one just for this size for this spot. And so we had a leftover piece of the kitchen countertop material cut just for this size and attached to this pair of table legs that we already had. So that was a way of using something existing, even a leftover piece of building material. You wouldn't necessarily think that scrap from your kitchen counter is going to end up in your library, but there we have it.
And we polished the piece in here instead of being honed like in the kitchen it really gives it a whole different material look, and more went with
more like the marble
vibe
on
of this
the
room.
fireplace.
So that wraps up the first floor. Why don't we go upstairs and we'll take a look in the master bedroom.
Let's go.
Here we are now in the master bedroom. So this is a room where we kind of took a little bit of a different direction than some of the other spaces, and less saturated colors, and really kind of stuck with that very neutral tone. And so the walls are a Roman clay that we really like the texture that brought, and it was pretty cool to see as they put that on. You know, it's really like slapping it on with a spatula versus the paint that's a little more particular in how it goes, and gives it a little more rugged look to kind of the texture there.
Yeah, it's Portolo paints from Los Angeles. The color's Patagonia. So it's all one neutral color. We found fabrics for the drapery in here that basically match the wall color, and we wanted to just keep it really nice and neutral and light. The plaster lamps, I think these are so cool. They're one of my favorite accessories in the house. These are from Blackman Cruise as well, the company that makes that Talon coffee table. So they do really unique and interesting pieces, and these plaster lamps with vertebrae are really cool. I like them on these stone nightstands, and we have reading lights by the bed, which make it nice to be able to turn it on and off just before you go to bed, or tilt to read to not keep the other person awake. And the artwork here, this little plaster piece, again, is something that we found this in Paris at the flea market on that same trip as where we found the dining room tables dining room chairs we were talking about downstairs. This little plaster piece we found and had shipped back, and I think it works great again with just the neutral, kind of calm, textural nature of this room. We have higher ceilings here than we do anywhere else in the rest of the house because it was new construction on the second floor. We could go a little taller here, and I think that might have been what inspired us to keep the paint and the furnishings really calm in here. It's just to have this airy, bright space, which feels very much like a master retreat from the rest of the house.
Yeah. You get a nice view of the backyard and the pool area from the Juliet balcony here, which is a nice little feature and a space to have. So stepping in here to the master bathroom, one of the things we kind of started, I always knew I liked the idea of opposing sinks, and so that was one of the first things that we were working around here as we set that up. And so we really started to find pieces here that we liked, and the mirrors is a good example. Kind of that Greek key. They're new but have a old look to them, and we like that scale and kind of texture of it that it brought to the room.
Yeah, they're Murano glass mirrors, and the fixture is new Italian. The ceiling fixture is new Italian Murano glass too. The floor is really the star of the show in here. It's what we picked first again and kind of made everything else work with it. You can see picking up the black again in here that kind of goes throughout the house. And we have a large steel window here because we have neighbors. We have these sheer drapes on them that we made sure you can't see through, but it is nice to be able to let the light in at different times and then close them for privacy when you need to. We have this big bathtub with a floor-mounted tub filler. I'm a bath guy. I like to take a bath. I used to say I'd take a Sunday night bath, and then as older as I get, that could be like 2, 3, 4 nights a week. So that's kind of what's fun for me to do on a Friday night these days, as much as anything. And so it gets a lot of use. There's an interesting mix of hardware in here too, like in the rest of our house, that with these handles that are on the vanity are the same as the handles that were used for the shower door and the linen cabinet. And then we have a heated brass towel bar here. You turn on the switch and you can have your towel a little bit warm in the morning. And then what we might have said, I don't know, both of us might argue about what our favorite space in the house is. It could be the closet, which we'll see next, but it could also be this big kind of dream shower that's also a steam room, and it's all clad in this beautiful marble on the wainscoting on the bottom, and the bench is completely made out of that as well. And we've got body sprays and shower heads, a hand shower, and the rain heads. So kind of a shower, definitely a shower dream in my opinion.
We tried to bring like the marble, the white marble on the wall together with the floor here, because particularly with this pattern, it's a busier stone pattern than some of the others. And so we decided we didn't want it to go wall to wall. And so having it be a little bit more of this kind of segmented part of the room, you could put that white border on that then tied into the shower to make it feel like part of the same space then as well.
Then we have these double doors here are iron steel doors that we hide all of our medicine cabinet and linens and towels behind, and have a little skincare fridge. So that's where we store our stuff in the bathroom that's not in the vanities. And yeah, that's about it. That's the bathroom. And this is our closet, and probably, if we're being honest, both of our favorite room in the house. Took
Probably
a lot
spend
of
the most
effort,
time hanging out here.
but we view it as really just a space for us to collect the things that we like and to hang out, just the two of us. So we'd love to show you around. This walnut cabinetry was all built to hold our stuff. Luckily, we, other than pants, Dan and I can share most items. So the clothes
Pants and shoes.
The clothes are all mixed. We don't have different sections for different of us, which makes it pretty easy to stay organized and display things. We have, again, clever organizing solutions here with these. This is where we keep our belts, with these drawer liners that are the same as the ones we saw in the kitchen with the felt bottom. So we have things like that there.
And you'll see this hardware throughout. This is the same series that Ochre handles as the wine room, but a smaller version, of course, in horn.
Yeah, these are horn, and really, I love these. We store watches here. We have some watches, and all of our shoes are lined up here in this area. And when we use this little stool, you can have a seat, change shoes. I could put on a different pair now. Then at the back of the closet is really the best part, which is this little private lounge that we have just for us in the back. Take a seat on the bench.
I think this is probably our favorite little part of the closet, and was really the final architectural detail that we added. So this is right above the patio down below, and neither one of those existed in what was probably our version final of our plans, but we were able to convince the architect that it was a good idea to extend it out a little more, and got this space, which is really a nice kind of lounge area of the closet versus just the more utilitarian closed storage area.
Part of the front. I don't think any of this is that utilitarian. So we will show you some more things that actually make it a space we can use at different times of day. I like to come in here in the morning, and this is where I start my day with a cup of coffee, just like before. There's cups here, and then we have a refrigerator here. The top one is vitamins and water, and the bottom one is for the evening, this is our little closet champagne fridge, which we think is a lot of fun. So
makes it nice for a little champagne bar in the closet.
Yep. There have been a few times when we've had dinner parties or people over, and somehow after dinner at the end of the night, why is everyone in our closet?
Yeah, drinking the champagne from the champagne fridge.
Yeah. This is the program from when we got married and the bow ties we wore. So we had those framed like a shadow box, and that's something that we display in here. Every drawer is pretty organized. Here's the sunglasses with those same drawer liners that we saw before. And so we tried to think of the best way to use all of the space. Even below the bench are these drawers where we can have more storage and continue to add things and change the way we display and store things.
We did this wallpaper that really you can only see in a couple spots. You can see it mostly in this back room here, but kind of inspired by a pinstripe men's suit, and it's even got a nice wool kind of suiting texture to it.
Yeah, so it feels soft and perfect for a closet. It's Philip Jeffries. And the paint here is the same color as the dining room, that gray, but here it's completely dead flat, completely matte, and in the dining room it's a really high gloss. So you can see how color can look different, a lot different depending on the sheen. Home for me is a place for family and friends to come together and have a great time.
A home for me is a place you can be at ease and relax and enjoy spending time with the ones you love.
Homeworthy, we are so happy you came by Highland Park, Texas today to see the Beverly Casa. Thank you for coming to our home. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us. We enjoyed having you.
Bye.
We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Michelle. Welcome to my New York City apartment.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, my name is Michelle Trinh, and we are in my West Village apartment in New York City. This is Augie, short for Augustin. So he's actually my rescue dog that I picked up in 2020 in California because it was really difficult to adopt a dog in New York City. So I brought him back from Cali. And he's actually named after the street I used to live in Paris. It was Rue des Grands Augustins, so Augustin, Augie. He fits here, not necessarily my purse, but on a plane as well. I found this apartment in 2019, and it was a complete gut job. So I renovated the entire place. I didn't see the vision right away, but my broker really pushed me on it, and I'm so glad that we did it. I renovated it in 2019, moved in it, and then got locked in it for the pandemic. It was livable, don't get me wrong, but the kitchen was completely closed off. It actually had a wall there. Everything was just a little bit tired. So I wanted to freshen everything up, and we just completely redid the entire thing. The floors, all of the molding, increased the bathroom size, redid the kitchen. I just really wanted it to my taste and to live out my vision. So my apartment is on the street level, and it is spaced over 2 floors. The entire square footage is around 700 square feet. So when you come in, you go directly into the kitchen on the first ground, and then downstairs is where you find my bedroom and bathroom. So I grew up in California, went to school there, thought I was gonna spend my entire life there until I went to college and studied abroad in Florence. And that just opened my eyes to a whole nother world. After college, I moved to New York City and started working for L'Oreal. So I've always been in the beauty industry, and now for 15 years at a bunch of different brands. And then I started my own company in 2020 in marketing, branding, and product development. So now I have my consulting company with clients in startups as well as corporate, and I help them make makeup. Welcome into my apartment. You walk straight into everything. So there's the kitchen right away, there's my office, there's storage, there's the living room, there's my piano, and there's the outside street. So you see it all right when you walk in. So let's just start off with my work from home situation. I'm big on Facebook Marketplace, so I actually got this desk that is originally from West Elm on Facebook Marketplace for $100 and then just taxied it back. What I do love about having this space is it's really compact. It isn't impeding on the space really, and I actually was really intentional of having it here because we put an outlet on the floor so that there weren't wires just going around everywhere. I also had gotten this chair that is social, viral, famous, that is a chair and a half because I like to sit cross-legged when I work and no one can see me because the video is just the top half. So I'm obsessed with this chair. And what's really great about sitting at this angle as well is in the background, I have my bookshelf. And so that is my Zoom background that's always styled. And what's fantastic is no one can see the mess in the living room or the kitchen. All they see is this little frame in the back. The first thing people always ask about is this skull and crown. They think that it's one piece. It actually is 2. The skull I got from a trip to Mexico with my family, and the crown I actually made. So I am obsessed with Halloween and host a party every single year. That year, it was themed the Met Gala. So this was my crown for the Met Gala for the theme of heavenly bodies, and I made it myself. So I do DIY sometimes. The rest of this stuff, is Parisian themed. I have books with Parisian design. I actually used this book to help me pick out my backsplash when I was stuck on what kind of tiling to get. So I just looked through my resources in my interior design books, and that's how I came up with that. I used to live in Florence when I was studying abroad in college, and I got to see the David in person and pretty much fell in love with him. So I'm kind of obsessed with the David. You'll see him appear again later on in this video, downstairs in my bedroom as well. But when I saw this marble statue of him, I had to have it. Another thing I like to do is have candles everywhere. I'm obsessed with candles and I love sourcing from local vendors and businesses and small businesses. So Maison Cruz is this local business in Long Island City, and they are actually a queer brand. And I love to support that community, and their scents are just delicious. So I have a ton of Maison Cruz candles. And then moving down to this area, I like to buy things off of auction. So these books are Antique Collection by Louise Malbach. And I bought it because one, of the green color, and two, because the subjects of the books actually really resonate with my space. So there's ones on Napoleon and Marie Antoinette. And so it just really meshed with my style, and getting antique books is a great way to decorate your space at a low cost. And then what's great for me is when I'm sitting here, I actually get to look at this beautiful art piece on the wall. This piece I sourced from Mexico. Funny story here, I actually saw a very similar piece from this artisan on the Citizenry. And the Citizenry is very premium. So I actually found the artisans themselves, went to their website, it's Carla Larga, and sourced a piece that is just a little bit different and more unique to my space. And I love it. I love the threading, I love the texture of it, and I love the symmetry of the piece, and it really calms me down while I'm working. I used to live in Paris, and so that really inspired the aesthetic of my apartment. I was in Paris and lived in Saint-Germain-des-Prés in the 6th arrondissement. And so everything from that experience really came over with me when I moved back to New York City. I just really wanted to combine that Parisian charm with New York resourcefulness. So let's enter into the living room, 2 steps away. So here, this is my Mario Bellini sofa that is a reproduction, and I really loved the look of this sofa that just juxtaposes against the traditional molding, a really modern type of feel. I love that it's also a sectional, and you can move these pieces around and it can actually grow with me. So if I move to a larger space one day, I can add more units, which is really great. And even yesterday, when I put up this tapestry, we had to move the units around to frame the tapestry well. So the Mario Bellini sofa I'm obsessed with. Yes, it is comfortable and it's fantastic to even nap on, short ones though. So these pillows are actually from the House of Hackney, and they were one pillow altogether. So you'll actually see that the pattern is supposed to match up, but I split it into 2 because I needed 2 lumbar pillows that were smaller to fit in this space. And I actually pulled tassels from another pillow to put them together. So you'll see one is actually black and one is teal, but whatever, it makes it a little funky. It's a lot of fun, and I just love that it truly fits into my space now because I split it into 2. So then, flanking this whole area and the star of this side is my tapestry. And I found this tapestry on First Dibs. I really wanted something that was long in length. Because my sofa is so low to the ground, it seems a little awkward to have something just up on top. And so I wanted something to hang actually past the chair rail molding and tuck behind the sofa. It makes it feel really intentional and really covers this vertical space really well. And the top of the tapestry, we actually worked with Maison by Max, who is local to New York City, and he sourced the hardware for me. And the ends of it really remind me of the fleur de lis, which is obviously very French. So both of my shelves in my living room were also sourced from Facebook Marketplace. I was carrying this actually from across the street. I looked pretty silly probably, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. So on this side, I have a couple of plants because this is where the light comes in. I also have this miniature painting from Peyton Cramp, and I actually have a larger one downstairs, but it's kind of nice to just have a little piece of art on the wall behind your shelves to add that height. And on top here, I have a bunch of little pieces of paper that are framed, and it is from an Adele concert, where at the end confetti flew everywhere, and when I picked it up, it actually was phrases and lyrics from her songs. So I love that so much, I put it into a frame. Recently, I really wanted to start playing piano again as my form of meditation. Again, Facebook Marketplace, found this piano, and I love that digital pianos are now so wonderful and they feel so realistic. So I sourced this Yamaha digital piano and currently learning a piece from Amelie, the movie. And as we move up, this is the most prized possession in my apartment. This is the very first piece of art that I've ever commissioned, and it is from Michael Mapes. It's a collection of photographs, and it all compiles to be a picture of Marie Antoinette. So I mentioned that my housewarming party was Marie Antoinette themed, and this is what I wanted to create out of it to continue that theme. And what's really fantastic about commissioning art is that you can ask the artist to put in images of what you want. So in there, there's a picture of me, my mom, my grandfather, and my grandmother as well. And then all the way at the top here, I sourced this federal mirror that is convex from upstate in Hudson. And you know, I love to go thrifting, and this was something I always wanted to get for my apartment. Found it in a nifty little thrift store and got it for like 35 bucks. So on my coffee table, what I really love about this is that there is a little pocket for my records, because I have a record player and I could put my records in here. Showcasing right now, we have Tupac to represent my West Coast background. But always have a candle lit. And what's really fantastic about these flowers, they're actually from ethereal blooms in the UK. They're preserved. These have been alive or look like this for 6 months. And this is my floral hack, is to get preserved arrangements that look like an arrangement. And people always ask me like, how long have you had this? Or do you keep on refreshing your flowers? They're actually preserved and they'll last for a year. I also am obsessed with rechargeable lights. I hate cords, and so getting rechargeable lights like this that can just sit on top of my coffee table and any place that I want to put it is really fantastic. So on this side, I have this print from Minted that was gifted to me by my friend for my housewarming. It's a photograph of Parisian apartments, and she and I used to live in Paris at the same time as expats for L'Oreal. So this was a great reminder of that time, as well as my dear friend who gifted it to me. And then over here, we have a custom fabricated marble side table. I actually went to a remnant yard and fabricated 2 pieces, my kitchen tabletop as well as this side table, just to have things fit into my space and size it exactly at the height and size that I needed for underneath this area. So this is not a working fireplace. It actually was marketed to be on the listing, but when we found out at the end of the day, it wasn't. My architect, J7 Designs, actually came up with a really great solution. Inside, we actually put a bioethanol fireplace insert instead, and so it's ventless, and you can have that cozy fireplace vibe without the soot and the wood and all of these other things that you would need for a wood burning fireplace. So I get those cozy vibes without all of the dirt, which is actually better for me. So during the spring and summer months, I actually like to style my fireplace with dried flowers and preserved flowers and real flowers as well, because it just helps to liven up this black box in the middle of the room. So right now there's florals in there, but obviously these will get taken out in the fall and winter when I actually get to use the fireplace. And the star of the show on this side is my antique mirror. So I found this mirror on Instagram from an account called Euro Mobilier. And they were fantastic, and I spoke to Olivier in French to get it delivered to my friend in France, in Paris, who then helped me get it delivered to here in New York. So we actually shipped this and a couple of other pieces over together, and I'm so happy that I finally got my antique mirror. I'd always wanted one when I was living in Paris. At that time, I couldn't afford it, so I finally was able to get one now, and I'm so happy that I have it. I buy, I do not DIY, because I am not skilled in that respect in any which way. And I really prefer to pay professionals who know what they're doing and have tons of experience. So for my apartment specifically, for example, the moldings are really on trend right now. I had an architect who knew the proper placement of them in the traditional French style, and they had that done. But in terms of sourcing, I actually source a lot of my things from France. Because I do speak French, I have the privilege of being able to communicate with, vendors out there and Instagram accounts. So my antique mirror actually came from France. So when you enter the apartment, you're directly into the kitchen, and over on this side, I hang my things up on these hooks to get them out of the way. And then right next to the door, there's a Prints by Josh Young design house. And I really just love the old school style of them with this modern strikeout of the eyes. And in this corner, when we first looked at the apartment, I had no idea that there was this curve in the corner. We actually opened up the closet and my architect saw that there was a curve and he said, hey, let's expose it. And I love that idea because everything is so square in the apartment. It was really nice to have that softness of the curve. And so I styled it here with a House of Hackney lamp over a vintage base, and have some of my custom matchbooks here. So you can see I customized matchbooks for my apartment that say Chez Vous. That's actually my decor account on Instagram and TikTok, so Chez Vous Decor. And on the other side, it says, from Michelle with love. So whenever my friends come over to visit, they get a little piece of my apartment to take home with them. And I just really love that little personal touch. So this island is the perfect size for a small New York apartment. I actually got it from Pottery Barn, but it did not come with this marble top. I actually went to Brooklyn and fabricated this piece and had it placed on top of the island just to up level and upcycle the entire thing, and I love it. People ask me all the time where I got it from, and I tell them that it actually was a remnant piece that I created. And then again here in this vintage compote bowl, I have more of my matchbooks so that people can grab them when they are leaving my apartment, as well as some customized napkins. And these I got from foryourparty.com, super easy to use. And again, my cordless rechargeable lamps, it's really fantastic to just have a little bit of light on the kitchen island. And then here, these are faux flowers. I'm a big fan of faux flowers because I kill most plants. This is my little coffee nook. I am addicted to coffee, and so I had to have a little space for my Nespresso machine and all of the things that I need for it. This little piece of artwork that I put up with command strips actually comes from a book. So if you know, there's a book called Paris versus New York, and it just compares all of these aspects of the two cities, and it's just perfect for me and my personality and living in both cities. So here it's comparing, coffees in Paris versus coffees in America. This is also a really sentimental piece to me. So this, I actually don't make coffee in, but I put my spoons in. But when I was about to move to France, I broke my wrist snowboarding, and I went to physical therapy, and I met this woman named Nicolette, and she was an older French woman, and I told her about going to France, and we actually started doing lessons together. The sweetest lady, and she bought me this when I finally moved to Paris. I came back to New York. I tried to reach out to her. I have lost contact, but Nicolette, if you're watching this, merci. I love to style my kitchen with things that you would find in your living space because it is an open concept and you see directly into the kitchen. So here I have an original painting of a croissant as well as jam in an antique frame, and then this little tea set that reminds me of the tea set that my grandmother had when I was growing up. And then here I have another little painting that I put up. Again, just like reminded me of the Moulin Rouge in Paris, which is great. And then because I hate the look of a Brita, I actually use this beverage dispenser for my water every single day. And yes, I fill it every single day and I use it every single day. So this fridge is paneled. Everything in my kitchen is paneled just again to have that seamless look. It's perfect size for one. Okay, so all of my condiments and whatnot, and a lot of takeout because the only thing I can make is reservations. And then on the bottom is the freezer. So again, perfect size for one person and everything that I need. And it just looks seamless in my apartment because it's all paneled. Right next to it actually is a paneled dishwasher, which is also fantastic to have in New York City. And then on this side, people love that I have this mini wine fridge. It holds only 7 bottles, one for every single day of the week, and it's all that you need for one person, but it's probably the smallest wine fridge that's out there. And to save space, we actually got a combination microwave and oven, so I don't have 2 different units. They're all combined into one. So I usually lean towards the maximalist, which helps me to stuff my apartment as much as I can. I have also been told that I am the master of measuring, so you will find things that don't go together but fit perfectly because I'm super meticulous about measuring out my space, making sure that there's room to breathe, but everything fits in right and proportionally so that you'll see throughout my apartment, there's things everywhere in every single corner. I absolutely have to curate my space, and there is not exactly a 1 in, 1 out. I would say 2 in, 1 out, and the other probably goes to storage. So I do have a storage unit as well, which helps me to keep what I need out here and then switch, say, my clothes seasonally. But I really try and be careful to bring things that I love into my apartment because there's just no room. So let's head downstairs, but before we do, I wanted to point out this glass railing. Before, it used to be a wooden banister, but we actually installed the glass so that the light can pass through, as well as it's really modern, again, against all of the traditional molding. So let's head down. Hoggy, come on, let's go. Come here. So welcome to the downstairs bedroom area. So my bedroom is on the basement level. So upstairs is the street and then you move one down. It's really cozy down here. There's not a lot of light, which is perfect for me because I sleep like a vampire, and the less light, the better. So behind here are actually windows, and I keep my curtains closed pretty much the entire time because right outside the window is the building trash. And that is not pretty to look at, and I just, keep it closed. I like to have it dark down here, and it's totally fine. There's no issues with smells or rodents or anything like that. Honestly, it's sealed off really, really well. But I love the space down here. It pretty much mirrors the footprint and layout of upstairs, and it's just a great sanctuary for me at the end of the day. So the color schemes down here are a lot more muted and calming and serene because I just wanted a really calm sanctuary to sleep in. Honestly, there's no screens down here either because I do not watch TV in bed. It's really just for sleeping. And so this is a digital-free zone, and I want to keep that serene, calm atmosphere like that all times down here. So this is a piece by Peyton Cramp, a local New York City artist, and it's an abstract of florals. It was actually commissioned for my apartment, and she pulled in the colors of my apartment and integrated them into the painting itself. So you'll see the blue, teal of my cabinets. I love just the texture of the oil painting, and it reminds me a little bit of foundation, and working in the beauty industry, I thought that was a really wonderful nod. And on this side, we have David. So as I mentioned, I lived in Florence and saw David, and I really wanted a big photo or homage to him. So I got a poster, had it framed, and then I was inspired by the Josh Young prints upstairs and struck out his eyes to just give it a bit more modern effect. So I DIY'd the paint. I can only DIY super simple things. And painting is actually one of the things that also calms me. So I don't mind doing that kind of a DIY. So this is a little vignette, a little corner. Behind this, there's actually storage underneath the stairs. So there's a door and handle here that will open up. And we integrated that, me and my architect with a contractor, built this out because New York City, you can never have enough storage. There's actually 4 suitcases underneath there, which is really fantastic for additional storage. This charcoal image is from again, local creator, which his name is Rajiv Surendra. And he's like the Renaissance man. He does everything. He does oil painting, he does watercolor, he sketches, he does pottery. So he's really amazing. And I got one of his pieces, which is fantastic. And this is also a very sentimental piece to me. This is a letter from my friend who passed in 2021. And we used to write to each other, and we called each other every single week. So even when I was living in Paris, he would call me every single Friday and we would catch up. But I love this letter that he had sent me. I had found it after his passing because it's very much him and it's his spirit. And he says in there, you know, I kind of want this letter to be kindling for your strength, that you may turn these letters to find warmth and use them to light your way ahead. So these words and his spirit is still with me, and I just love having him nearby. So right next to my bedside is this custom lamp made by Maison by Max, and it's marble, brass, and glass, and it actually is a touch lamp, which is really easy and great when you're bedside. When you are like searching for a switch in the middle of the night, you can just tap it wherever and it will turn on. So in this corner, we built out this niche, and it originally was supposed to be where my bed was, but because I needed additional storage, I moved my bed to this side and added in this buffet. So I'm a proponent of not having furniture where it's supposed to be. So I really love the look of this dining buffet. And so I use it as my dresser and for storage. And I love it down here in my bedroom. In this corner, you see I have more of the green theme. So I pulled everything out of my closet and in my space that kind of marries those things together. And I have, again, more of those books, the antique books from Louise Mulbach down here to just harmonize it together. In this little corner, there is actually a fashion sketch of me. I am dear friends with the former design director of Marchesa, and I wore this dress for a holiday party, and he sketched me in it, which is really, really cool. I am obsessed with lipstick and everything beauty. So this print is actually from Ada, and I got it in London at the Nellie Duff Gallery. What's lovely about it is that on this pedestal, it says on there, weapon of choice. And I find that makeup and beauty is really my weapon of choice. I use it to put on my shield, and I feel like I can conquer the world when I put on the right lipstick. So that is very much me and on brand. And my shoes actually have lipstick on them too. These are from Prada. So, you know, keep in with the theme. This is a little souvenir that I got from the US Open. My cousins actually got this for me for the year that we went together, so it reminds me of them. But I go every single year, and I love watching tennis. I used to play tennis, so this is here to just remind me of that shared pastime. And then this piece of artwork is by Andy Blank. It is a local New York artist that has actually really affordable pieces that are limited edition. So this one is out of 100 and it's a singular piece. And there is a laser cut phrase in there that says, "Who do you think you are?" The story behind this, when I saw it, I knew I had to have it. And the story behind this was when I was younger. This was probably one of my first encounters of prejudice and racism. We were on a family trip, and my uncle was in an altercation with a man, a Caucasian man. And we were a whole family together, and we saw this happening. And I was in the car with my cousins, and I told my uncle, open the door. And I ran out to the man and I said, "Who the hell do you think you are?" And I just started yelling back at him and defending my uncle and my family. And that's just, for me, like the biggest thing. You do not mess with my family. And so when I saw this, I knew I had to have it. Then moving on, this is a fun little moment. More lipsticks, shocker. This is where I take a lot of selfies. It's a great little Saletti mirror that has a bunch of hands holding lipsticks. So it's a fantastic little shot to have and just a little bit of fun. And on this side, I usually do my hair, so I like to have a mirror here to see as well. And then, of course, we have Marie Antoinette. This actually was a candle that got spray painted white. I didn't do it. I got it from somebody else who had and didn't need it anymore. And I thought that was really cool. And then another fashion sketch on this side. I am also friends with the design director at Pamela Roland. And this is a feather dress that I wore to the VMAs that Taylor Swift said I looked beautiful in, which was really cool. So as I mentioned, I love Halloween and I love a costume. And so this is my Marie Antoinette wig that I wore for my housewarming party, as well as a Bridgerton party, because I am a fan. I got this wig and I made this whole nest situation, and it was a lot of fun. But this is how hard I go when I dress up for a theme. So this hat is actually a hat from Prada. So like I said, I have a Prada obsession, but my friend works at Prada, and so I get access to their sample sales, which I'm very lucky to do. But it is actually really warm and cozy, and it's just huge, and it just makes a statement on the street. So you'll always be able to find me in the winter. So this is my little vanity area. I work in beauty and for 15 years, so you can imagine how much product I've collected. So it is filled with products. All of this is filled with makeup, but I really just needed a space to do my makeup in the morning, test out products as well. And so I added all of these little antique mirrors around it just to add in that Parisian vibe as well. And over here, this is my Carrie Bradshaw moment. I have a shoe closet. So you will see all of my little lovelies in here. Yes, Carrie loves Manolo Blahniks, and I would say that I'm a fan of Prada, and that would be mine. This shoe is actually really cool. When I actually was working at Kiehl's in New York City, I was moving to Paris. And the creative team actually tagged up these Converse shoes for me with the Kiehl's theme and the skyline and the brand and whatnot, and little messages, which I really loved. And yeah, I've never worn them, but I keep them as my collectible to remind me of that time. It's so hard to pick a favorite pair of shoes. I would probably say that some of my most comfortable shoes are actually this super high Louboutin. And it is just like very fierce looking and can really edge up any kind of a simple dress or jean. So this is probably my favorite shoe. Welcome to my dressing area. So this entire space I actually painted in a different color to have more of that rosy glow with the lights on. It is Farrow and Ball setting plaster, and I love it. But the thing that people love in this dressing room are these selfie lights. They are actually integrated into the wall. I had my contractor build these out. There's a service door behind here, but I always knew that I wanted to put a mirror in front of it and then have lights flanking so that I can take pictures with my friends, outfit of the day, and it's just the most beautiful glowing light. So highly recommend, if you can install them, I would definitely do it. On this side, I have a commissioned art piece by Camille Hunt that is a body print. So that is actually me. My body got painted, I laid down on the paper, and then she sketched the outline. And so I had a very Samantha moment, you know, when she took pictures of herself. I felt like this is me commemorating where I am right now in my life, feeling very secure about myself. And so that's when I had this made. And of course, I work in beauty, and so my perfume collection is massive, again, collected over 15 years. So when people come over, they can take their pick of what they want to wear. Welcome to my tiny but mighty bathroom. It is covered in this floral wallpaper from Ellie Cashman. I really wanted to treat my bathroom like it's a powder room. New York City bathrooms are super small, and so I might as well go all out. So we actually were able to double the space of the bathroom. There used to be a tub right here and a tiny little sink, but because I'm on the basement floor, I was able to expand the water footprint, which is great. So I added in a standing shower, and because I don't use a tub and I don't need it, and that was wonderful for me. And then over here is the ultimate flex in New York City, a washer dryer. Home means it's where you can be your most authentic self. It's where you ugly cry, it's where you scream, it's where you laugh until you snort. It's just where you can be your most true and authentic self. And when you invite people into your home, you're showing who you are.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Stephanie. Welcome to my house in Texas. Please come on in. Hi there, I'm Stephanie Stallard. We are in Bartlett, Texas right now, outside of Austin, about 45 minutes. I live here with my two dogs. This is Ralph and Floyd. And I have been renovating this house for the last 2.5 years, taking it from definitely a livable home that needed a massive facelift and making it my own, and I'm excited to show you. So this house was built in about 1906 to 1910. It was built by a gentleman named T. Denton, and he actually owned the lumber yard here in Bartlett. And there's some really neat signage of his stamped wood under the stairs that says T. Denton, Bartlett, Texas. I did go down to the courthouse in the county and sat at a computer in the basement for a couple of hours trying to find the history of all the different owners to see if there was anything really interesting there. It's definitely went through quite a few hands over the years. The owners prior to me were here 20, prior to that another 20. The gentleman that was here 2 owners ago said that he purchased it from a military colonel that had just let it sit for years and years, and I was so curious what was the paint color on the outside when he bought it, and he said there was no paint, it had all chipped away, and so he did a ton of work in this house with his family, and it was really great to be able to hear that story from him. Welcome to my entryway. So this is the first space people walk into when they come through the front door. It is grand. We have 2 sets of pocket doors. I mean, you could fit 2 beds in this space. It's a lot of room, and it has just this beautiful original detailing back here that's called fretwork, kind of separating the 2 spaces into the stairway. In this room, I did a lot. I peeled back so many layers. There was fabric on the walls. There was then wallpaper behind that. And before I could remove the wallpaper, I had to pull those nails and staples that were holding the fabric up. So yeah, it was just a peel back process. I ended up adding the wainscoting or the beadboard into this space, and I kind of did that because I ended up finding behind the wall some wallpaper, original wallpaper that had 3 different patterns. It had the lower pattern, it had kind of the band, and then it had an upper pattern. And so I kind of wanted to mimic that line across the space that had been there before. And so I kind of just cleaned the space up, put some neutral colors in. This flooring was here when I bought the house, and I'm sure that there's wood floor underneath. Hopefully the next owners would want to maybe uncover that as well, because I think that's just such a beautiful part of the house, especially since it was in such good condition. But yeah, I filled the room with all kinds of things. One of my favorite pieces is this Cuba cloth. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I did end up finding it at an estate sale hanging in a closet with blankets and quilts. And when I brought it to check out, the woman running the estate sale was like, I'm so glad somebody saw that and knew that it was something special. It was folded into a piece, you know, this big. And she didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. So I went home, I Google imaged it, and it's very old. My understanding, and again, I hope I get this correct, my understanding is that Kuba cloths originated from the Congo and women wore them as skirts. So they would spin around and it was a skirt. It's got just beautiful colors, beautiful texture. It's aged so well. So I did want to use this space to display it because it's a big piece. I hung the Kuba cloth using kind of these quilt hooks. It's a nail in the wall that you hook this wood piece onto. I was looking for different ways to find to hang it, but you truly just unscrew this and it falls out. And so that was a fun measuring project to figure out where to space all of those and make sure they were level, but I think it turned out really great. So I love having this piece here. It's also a conversation piece. I think, you know, a lot of people don't know what it is, and it's a fun story to tell. And I always like to learn something. This piece, there's a story, when we get to the primary bathroom, there's a fun story about this piece. I found it at an antique store in Austin, and it's just an old shop table, you would think, but when I got it here to the house, I cleaned this up, which is a metal kind of measuring tape. It's got the sort of yardage in here, so I imagine this used to be used as a fabric measuring at an old general store. But when I was cleaning out the inside, I ended up finding an original store receipt, which told me where it came from. And it came from a general store out of Shiner, Texas. And yeah, I ended up finding later on in the bathroom, which I'll show you, a piece on Facebook Marketplace. And in the listing, it said it came from a general store in Shiner, Texas. So I don't know for sure 1,000%, but I do feel like I reunited two pieces that, you know, were together a long time ago and now are together again. So other things in this room, I mentioned the fretwork here that is original throughout the house. When I got the house, if there was original woodwork, stained, unpainted, I would never touch it. I would leave it as is. But if something was already painted, you know, again, I hope the new owners of the house, the next owners, you know, would want to take that time to peel back the layers of the paint and find that original stained wood. But if it was left untouched, I left it untouched. So this entryway, you see some of the fretwork is painted, some of it is still the stained wood. I just gave it a little bit of a refresh, but the detail work in this is incredible. And so really a showstopper for the house. This piece, which I found in a antique store in Minnesota, it's called a batik, which is painted basically on silk. And so I just love the piece for its color, its texture, it's unique, it's different, it's definitely not painted on a canvas, and I think it's perfect for this space. So I would love to show you my living room next, which is just off the entryway through one of 3 sets of pocket doors. I was living in Austin for about 7 years before moving up here, and when I moved to Austin, I wanted to buy a house and I wanted a project where I could renovate something old with character, but I just wasn't finding that in Austin at that time in my budget. And so I decided to just get a new build and lived there for some time, but that kind of yearned to work on this old project. I was watching so many other people do it on Instagram, following cheap old houses and seeing, you know, all of these houses pop up all across the country. And kind of there was a pivotal point where I was sort of like, okay, I'm either gonna do it or I'm just gonna keep talking about it. And I was almost about to move to upstate New York because there's so many options there, just, you know, cheap and just a ton of options with amazing character. And then I saw this house pop up, and it is about 45, 50 minutes up outside of Austin, and I kind of weighed the pros and cons of you know, moving to upstate New York, which I lived in New York City once and I loved that area, the Northeast. But this kept me closer to my friends, closer to my family. and, risk reward. And I ended up with, the house that checked every single one of my boxes with the original character. And, still livable though. I had to be able to live here and renovate at the same time. And so, yeah, I definitely got through the project more quickly than I thought I would, but it was what I was looking for at the time, and even now for sure. This is the living room, and it definitely has had some updates, but I did keep the fabric on the walls that the prior owner put up. I loved the green, I love the solid. I think some of my favorite pieces in here, this coffee table, this marble coffee table, is my best thrift find of my life. I found it on Facebook Marketplace down in San Antonio. I had to run down there in the morning because I knew somebody else was going to steal it. It's solid marble. It's got a solid marble base. These sell for $3,000 on First Dibs or Cherish, but I got mine for $125. And the wildest part is when I was picking it up from the owner, she said, "Yeah, you just missed it. There was a whole dining room table that went with it." So I was super bummed to miss that, but this is a piece that I will carry with me over and over and again from house to house. So I love this one. On top of the coffee table, in real life, I move these books around because this is also where I eat. But it's just a lot of books that I've collected from estate sales. Again, you're going to hear estate sales, Facebook Marketplace, thrifting. But yeah, it's books, it's different tchotchkes, it's rocks. Girls love rocks. I don't know why. But a really cool old antique domino set, again, with textures, stones, those metals, brass, those sort of things. I love to just mix all of those things together. So the coffee table is representative of kind of all those different materials. One of the really neat things on the coffee table is this tic-tac-toe, which lived in my grandmother's house in Tennessee during my childhood. And I saw she had put it in the basement one year, and I asked her if I could have it. So I think you see a lot of these days at places like West Elm, but this one actually has a lot of meaning to me. Myself and all my cousins played with it, and so I love that it's now in my house. I think these chairs make a huge statement in this space. Again, Facebook Marketplace. They were white leather, and the leather was kind of sticky. And so I knew I wanted to put a print on them. I found this print and had them reupholstered by a gentleman here in Bartlett, which it's a very small town. And so to find an upholsterer here was a win. And he did a really nice job kind of with getting the checker print to match up perfectly. And so he was a really skilled tradesperson that it was nice to work with. And I paired a pattern on pattern, which is something I learned from many of the designers that I follow, but I paired it with kind of these probably old rug pillows. And so, yeah, I think these chairs are another one that would be very hard for me to let go if I was to ever sell them. And there's a few sets of chairs around the house that I feel that way about. Obviously, the original fireplace. So again, I want to preface, this was not wood before I found it. I would never paint unstained wood. It was white when I bought the house. It was painted white. And I really wanted these original tiles to pop. Some of them are a little shaky, but they're so old and perfect that I thought the black would kind of center this room and let those tiles do their thing. And so obviously this is the showstopper of the space, just this beautiful original fireplace. And there's 3 of them in the house and 1 that I ended up putting back in. Unfortunately, when I purchased the house, none of the fireplaces were usable. And so I have not had the time to make them usable. I think that would be something that is definitely doable. The chimney stacks are still there. And it's just something that I didn't want to put my time and attention to. And also it's Texas. I would probably use it one day out of the year. So it was not high on the list for me. On the fireplace mantle, gosh, I feel like I talk about materials all the time. I'm super drawn to stone. I found these marble books, which are super heavy. Solid marble, 3 of them, 3 sets. Found these at an antique store in Taylor, just about 15 minutes south from me. Found this hand at an estate sale. And then this wood piece at an estate sale as well. So kind of just trying to mix different materials and create visual interest. So if you're looking to start bringing secondhand pieces into your house, as far as estate sales go, there's estatesales.net, and that's available anywhere you live. And something I like to do is the emails for those come out about maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, and they tell you what estate sales are happening in your area on, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I scroll through the pictures. If there's maybe like 2 or 3 things that are really of interest for me out of those photos, then I will make a trip out to go to that estate sale, just because I get a sense that that person might have more things that I want. But it takes a lot for me to want to actually go to one. So there has to be enough there for me to make that trip. And then on Facebook Marketplace, it is about consistency. It is about being on Facebook Marketplace every day. It's about the algorithm, learning what you like, saving things, even if it's not exactly what you want. Just getting that algorithm to try to start picking up on things that you would want. And then every once in a while, you'll land on something like the coffee table. And you have to snag it. You can't wait. If it's the thing you want and it shows up, go get it immediately. If you think there's going to be a lot of people bidding on that same item, offer them $20 more. Offer to send a Venmo deposit. There's ways to kind of be the first one to get those items if it's something that is really important to you. And don't be afraid of refinishing something like these chairs that I mentioned. Obviously, they were not in a fabric that I would want, but I knew I could refinish them if I got the chairs for a good enough price to begin with. So it's funny, when I saw this house come up on the market, I called a friend who is a real estate agent, and I said, let's go look at this house. I don't know, if I know I'm ready, but I don't know how I'll feel after looking at it. I have to weigh so many things. We came up here, we looked at it. To get it, it was a very long process of going back and forth with the owner. But yeah, immediately I knew that this was one that I wanted to go after. Did not look at another house. This was the only house that I looked at, and luckily was able to get it. But yeah, I knew, kind of walking around, and I don't know what brain that is, but I have a brain that, allows me to kind of see the potential of a room, see what it could look like, see where I would put things, see what I want to buy. The most fun part of this process for me is collecting pieces for the house. And just finding things that are perfect for the room, and doing that throughout the whole house was almost as fun as the renovation itself. Everything you see, almost everything in this entire house, is Facebook Marketplace, estate sales, antique stores, thrift stores in this area, Goodwill. I've been to all of them in this area, and I became a huge estate sales shopper through this as well. And the thrill of the hunt, the bargaining, all of that is so much fun. So it's full of secondhand pieces, some that I've had reupholstered, some that are just perfect as is. But yeah, it's eclectic. There's antique pieces, there's super modern pieces, there's pieces with a lot of good patina. That's kind of what I'm drawn towards, is things that tell a story, different materials, metal, marble, wood, fabric, and glass. All of those different things are kind of what I'm attracted to, and it's been so much fun. One last thing that I want to show you in this room is, there's 2 sets of pocket doors here, but this one in particular is just one door, and it's huge. It has the original hardware that still works, and it has the key and everything. And so this is just an original thing in the house that is incredible. And the size of it is just insane. You don't see, I think, this size, especially in Texas. And so it's a piece of the house that I love to show people, and definitely shocks them. So that kind of leads us perfectly into the dining room. This space, again, we've got a beautiful fireplace, which I'll show you in a second, and it was in rough shape. It had, various wallpapers, top and bottom, which thankfully there wasn't fabric on top for me to have to then get to the wallpaper. At least it was just the wallpaper, but I went through peeling back that layer, then I did a skim coat, and then obviously paint. And in this space, I knew that I wasn't going to use a formal dining table, and with it just being me and the dogs and having friends over every once in a while. So I wanted to find a way to make this room kind of multifunctional. And so I found this walnut dining table that's also a ping pong table, which works well for when I have friends over. There's been a lot of fun nights in this room, and it definitely gets used more than it would if it was just a dining room. Another set of chairs that I love that I found. These were originally not great, but I saw the bones, I saw the shape, I saw that they could be better. And so they're super, you just sink into them when you sit down. And yeah, I think they are perfect in this room just for people, that are watching any ping pong games that are happening. I think the most important piece in this whole room is the original china cabinet, which has not been painted over, still in perfect condition, absolutely stunning. Holds all the things that I never use but are still pretty. And yeah, just to think that, whoever, all the people that have lived in this house over the years have seen the beauty in this and the value in this and left it as is and taken care of it, I think is just something special to think about. And it's stunning. Behind me, you'll see this gallery wall of women. I can't remember where I initially saw it, but I saw someone do something similar of just sort of collected portraits of people that were painted. And I had this idea that, it starts with one and then it starts with another, and then you sort of see a trend and then you're drawn to them when you're shopping. And so here I am now, I have a wall of women. I'm drawn to things that are conversation starters, that are just a little bit weird, but also interesting, also beautiful and unique. And so this wall is definitely representative of that. A lot of them are just found in random places, but one of them in particular was done by a friend in the, I hope I don't mess this up, but acoustic style, which is wax painting. And so that would be this one here. So a friend of mine, Kelsey, did this one. She did a series of a few different women, and I was so excited. I think I was her first sale of one of her paintings, and it's a cool piece to, within the whole gallery wall, to know that a friend of mine did one of them, and it's actually one of the most impressive at the same time. This is matchbooks I had made for my house. It says the Denton House. It has my Instagram on it, which is @StudyJoeStallard, and it says y'all come back now. So it's just for my friends to pick up and grab on their way out. And it was done for your party. And I'm not the original person to have this idea. I got the idea from someone I follow on Instagram, Tremont Home, I believe. This is, I guess, 2 of the 3 fireplaces that were here in the home when I got here. Thankfully, didn't have to do anything to this one. This one is stained wood. Nobody ever painted over it. I didn't paint over it. I would never. It doesn't have the tile like the other fireplace does, but the next person to buy this house can easily restore that. That's an easy DIY for someone to be able to do. And so, yeah, it's so nice to have multiple fireplaces in the house. So in an old Victorian house like this, the way that they set the layout is they would have the dining room, the butler's pantry, and then the kitchen, so that the staff working in between the 2 spaces had somewhere to do their setup, and that they, that whatever was happening in the kitchen was not interrupting whoever was dining in the dining room. And so I think what makes sense to show you next is the butler's pantry. It's got this really cool swinging door that goes both ways, and I can just see the people, holding their platters going in and out without using the door, and it's got beautiful built-ins, so I'll show you this way. I am no historian, but I believe they categorize this as a Queen Anne Victorian. Definitely Victorian. The Queen Anne portion is the the toss-up, but there is a lot of that in this area and in Georgetown, which is nearby. And so, yeah, Victorian and maybe Queen Anne. Don't quote me on that. This room actually is what the prior owner had throughout the house. A lot of is fabric on the walls. This is actually fabric versus maybe like what's popular right now with the limestone wash. It kind of looks like that, but it is a fabric. There was fabric everywhere, a lot of prints and patterns. And so I kind of dialed that back. And I guess my philosophy is you can bring in a lot of pattern and interest through fabrics, pillows, textures, the decor items versus necessarily the pieces that, or the furnishings that stay permanent. I did a little bit of that in some rooms. In the bedroom I put up beadboard throughout the whole space, walls and ceiling, just to provide something, more interesting, but also historic for the house. And so, yeah, I like neutral tones. At least for this house, I do. I want to do the next house maybe like a mid-century modern and completely change my style. So I like to kind of practice in different areas. Definitely not a professional, but it's fun to kind of push myself into those spaces that I haven't done before. So I want to do something different next. This is the butler's pantry. This beautiful built-in holds all of my spices, a lot of my KitchenAid mixer and different bowls and different things, but it's a great kind of prep area, a place to store all of the things that don't go in the kitchen or don't need to. And also in this space, this is one of my favorite original light fixtures in the house. It's just got a really unique shape. And I think it's perfect for this room. And originally, when I purchased the house, this room had kind of a Pepto-Bismol pink walls, a wallpaper trim at the top. I ended up putting up this crown molding, and the floor was kind of the laminate tile that I could easily just peel back, and I ended up putting in this marble mosaic tile down. That was my first ever tile job, and so learned a lot there. Had to cut the tile on the tile saw and grout, and I learned very quickly that small tile takes a lot of grout, and that's a really hard job to not only lay down, but then clean up afterwards. So one of the many things I learned in this house, but the butler's pantry is a really nice little kind of jewel box of the house. Right behind the butler's pantry is the kitchen. I can't wait to show you. This room is filled with so much light. I love being in here, and man, did it look different before. I put in these light fixtures. I had to move them. They were further out. We recentered them over the island. The island was one that sort of had it went to here and then it stepped up and came out, and I wanted just more of a flat workspace. So this is actually a bowling alley lane, Facebook Marketplace. No one's shocked, but I found it on Marketplace. One of the guys that has been helping me on some of the things around the house, he was able to sand it down so that I could refinish it with a stain. And so he also added a bull nose to kind of match the other countertop. What's over there around the other side of the room was there when I bought the house. So I did try to use some of the material that was already here, but bring in some new things as well. The cabinets were kind of a dark blue. The hardware had the sort of, I don't know what they're called, but you pull them out by tucking your fingers up under there. And I never liked them. It always scared me to go under. It's just old. So I did a lot of refresh. I took down the upper cabinets in here. I put these shelves up all by myself. That was my first kind of woodworking, using all of my different tools that I was using for the first time. Really proud of that. Of course, it's not that wildly difficult, but it was new to me, and I'm proud of myself. This beautiful plate rack I want to show you up close. Anybody want to guess where I found it? Facebook Marketplace. Locally as well, but I have to assume that this is from the 1800s. There's no way it's, 1900s. It's so old. It's got kind of wormholes in it. I don't know if it's wormwood, but the detailing of these little spindles and just the different patinas throughout. And it's also just a great storage piece too. So I think it just connects the wood island. It brings in kind of depth and dimension into the space. And so it will stay with the house for the next owners, but I think it really adds something nice to the kitchen. The next thing I want to show you are these little curtains. So I want to make things interesting. And so rather than keeping the cabinet doors that were here, I wanted to kind of bring in some curtains. And so it's funny because my parents, especially my mom, they have touches throughout this whole house of things that they've helped me with. They live 3 hours away, but I have my mom come in here and there to help with different things. And so these curtains I had my mom make, I kind of saw them in my mind, but we were also limited by how much fabric we had, so we had to get creative, but I think they're really cute. It's more interesting than just cabinets the whole way across. So I'm really glad that my mom was able to do that. I love to cook. I, don't cook as much or for as many people, but I definitely come in here and there's space to do anything you want. And so lots of baking, lots of cooking, lots of just, coffee in the mornings. That's kind of my favorite thing. I have these little dimensional things hanging in the window that reflect the light in the morning. And so the light comes in through this room and the whole room is just kind of glittered with different light. And so even just making the coffee in the morning is so special to be in this space. The last thing that I would show you in this room is this beautiful old English pine, I don't even know, armoire kitchen cabinet situation. But this not Facebook Marketplace for once, I found this at an estate sale. Quite close as well in Taylor, but it was sitting out in someone's barn. It was in various pieces, and I just saw kind of the color of the wood, the tone of the wood. I didn't know what it would look like when it was all put together, but for $200, this piece is exactly what this kitchen needed in this space, and it also it's just, there's more storage than you could ever need here. It holds all kinds of things like my dog food and extra plates, glassware, different things. And so I think, I hope that it can stay with the house maybe even when I'm done, because it's just so perfectly in this space. This over here, I wish I could have found two, but I only found one at the time. In Georgetown, which again is a town quite close to us, I found this wall sconce. It's so heavy, it's huge. It captures my, again, the material kind of thing that I try to focus on when I'm designing. You've got your brass, you've got your wood. This is actually the shade that came with it. I love it, and man, if I could have found two, that would have been great. I do a lot of Google image searching to try to find, what is this thing that I just found that feels special? Can I find what it actually is? Who made it? Are there more out there if I wanted another one? And I can't find anything on this one. So I don't know if it's handmade or what, but it's definitely a really fun piece. You know what? All the vents in this house were silver. And, well, not all of them. Some of them are brown and I replaced them with new ones, but these in this space, I spray painted them gold. So it is not original, but it definitely serves a purpose. And I was taking a lot of the finishes in this house because I just prefer gold or brass over silver. And so I was trying to kind of update those things in a way that wouldn't break the bank, but that, but that elevated to my style and then just maybe to the times that we're in now. And I think this whole house is a study on, how do you elevate and make something feel expensive or luxurious without spending that. The whole house is secondhand. You can use spray paint to update things without having to buy brand new. And so I just tried to think creatively throughout the whole house about how to do that. I went to school at Texas A&M and studied education, knew I didn't want to teach kind of coming out of school after having worked almost full-time in kind of more of a corporate setting. And so coming out of school, ended up working for Teach for America in their corporate office in New York City, and definitely found myself, I'm artistic, I love design, but I think the business setting, the corporate setting is where I thrive on the sort of professional side. So I definitely have this as my outlet on the personal side, which is the passion of sort of getting that artistic opportunity to do that on the side. And so, yeah, I was in New York City, worked for Teach for America for a bit, did some executive recruiting, and ultimately landed in the space that I've been in for the past 12 or 13 years, which is private equity, and moved to San Francisco, did that for a long time, and then that's how I ended up later on in Austin, but still in private equity. So I do currently work for a company in San Francisco. I work remotely from home here, and do operations for the company, which is a lot of back office things like HR, IT, compliance, real estate, all that good stuff. The reason the kitchen gets so much light is because it's right off the sunroom, and it's where I keep all my plants. I tried to have the plants throughout the house when I first moved here, but they just weren't very happy, and they're very happy out here. And so are my dogs. This is the enclosed sunroom porch, and this is where I have all my plants. As you can see, this was a light reno. It was different colors before. The flooring was just kind of PVC laminate flooring, but yeah, I try my hand at a green thumb here and there, and this room is just really a happy place for the plants. I think the most exciting thing about this room is if you look up high, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 stained glass leaded windows, and I'll show you when we get to some of the other rooms, but the huge picture windows in some of the bigger rooms have kind of a detail. They're new windows now, but they have a detail at the top with some vertical lines. And I can see in some of the older photos of the house that these were probably the original windows that went in that space when the original windows were in the house. So I love that whoever did this thought of a new way to use them, and they're just beautiful. They reflect the light in a way that makes this room special. You can see it happening here on the walls from those windows. So imagine if they were, in the living room or the office or the bedroom. Just really neat. I have a green thumb. I've been able to keep these things alive for as long as I have. They don't all look super happy, but one of the things I love to do is propagate. So, some plants do it really well and some of them don't, but this is a propagation from another plant where you kind of cut it off, let the stem soak in water for a really long time till it roots, and then you can just create a new plant and keep doing that over and over again. So I don't have a lot of time for that these days, but a lot of these plants were sisters of other plants, but yeah, I try. And sticking with the theme, Facebook Marketplace, some of these plants came from Facebook Marketplace. This one in particular, it's grown quite a bit since I got it. But that's a great place to look for plants that are super expensive otherwise at a nursery, like a fiddle leaf fig, or some of the other, super popular plants in design right now. Check Facebook Marketplace. People are moving and they can't take them, and you can get it for a steal. And sometimes you can get huge, like 7 feet plants that would take you forever to grow. And so I hope I can keep this one alive as long as possible, but it's been a fun addition. Now I'd love to take you back and show you kind of how the house weaves into the other spaces, some that we've seen already, but the bedroom in particular is right this way. Now we are in the stairway. We talked about the fretwork from the entryway a little while back, and now here we are in this space. Another really budget-friendly but high-impact thing that I did here is these floral, framed floral prints. So I was just collecting these prints as I went along at Goodwill. You can find them for $2, $3 a piece. And then I happened upon a botanical book, a floral botanical book from probably the 50s or so. And I just started picking out ones that I thought went well together or even just fit in the frames well. And then you can kind of create this gallery wall. I'm sure that this whole thing was $30, maybe even less. And so again, I could have kept going through the whole thing if I wanted to. The book has hundreds more pictures to choose from. So it's if you find a book like that, you can use it for so many different things. And the stairwell leads straight into the primary bedroom. I would say Originally, this never would have been the primary bedroom. They wouldn't have had a primary bedroom downstairs or probably a primary bathroom. But at some point it was put in, and I don't know what this room was beforehand either, but I imagine probably maybe like a gentleman's smoking room, a lady's sitting room, but there's so many spaces down here that, you know, I guess they needed a room for everything back then. So in this room, again, you'll find a set of club chairs that I absolutely love. Another, trying to remember, it's either Facebook Marketplace or estate sales, but found these, had them reupholstered in a fabric that I really love, especially up close. And they're just great for this space. Again, the walls in this room, this is a room that had fabric on the walls. It was kind of like a burgundy, with a gold thread through it. There was a trim kind of at hip level that was plastic that you could break across your leg. And so I pulled the fabric down. Behind the fabric was a blue and white wallpaper, which wasn't very old, but it was actually very pretty. It just wasn't in good enough shape to be able to keep. There was a lot of drywall damage, and so ultimately we pulled all that back. At some point, when I was uncovering the carpet, I found over here by the fireplace, I found kind of like a concrete pad where a mantle likely was before. And I went back to one of the original pictures that I have of the house, and I could see that there was a fireplace here at one time. And so knowing that, and knowing that I wanted to restore one back, again, it's not working, but I did want to bring that idea back into the space, I started collecting these pieces. So I got the mantle from an antique store in Salado, which is just north of here. I found the tile, which is Zalige clay tile. On Facebook Marketplace, somebody had a huge project in their house and they had the perfect amount left over. I'm saying I had 2 pieces left from this job, that it was the perfect amount somehow. And then this cover as well. And so, and then the best part maybe even is this marble fireplace hearth that I found in a nearby town. But, you know, just putting all the pieces back together, even though it doesn't work, it's such a statement in this room, and I'm glad that I could bring it back in. The curtains, I didn't want them to be the focal point. I wanted them to blend into the wall, and so this is a color in the house that I've used many times. It's Sherwin-Williams shiitake. It's in the entryway, on the beadboard below, it's in the kitchen on the cabinets, and it's in this room. And so again, I wanted the curtains to kind of blend into the wall, have this be kind of a soothing space. And I did, they're just Amazon. They're a really heavy kind of linen that works really well in this room. And here is kind of a good example of the window that I was talking about with the vertical pieces. That originally, the windows on the back porch up at the top, I imagine originally those would fit in a window like this throughout the house. And so I didn't want to hide that when I was getting curtains for the room. And I ended up looking for some shutters so that I could close the window, you know, at night and from the outside world, but still let light in and also show off that detail of the window itself. And if you spin around, the other thing on this room, kind of where I started with the design, is just a gallery wall of a lot of landscape art and prints that I found in my hunts. Again, I just wanted this room to feel sort of soothing and relaxing and nothing too exciting. Let's head to the office where I spend most of my time since I work from home. It's one of the first rooms that I did in the renovation because I knew I was going to be spending so much time there. And again, we're in the entryway here, another set of pocket doors. And this is the office. So in this room, it was probably like a lime green yellow, and it had stenciled butterflies. And so I knew that had to go quite quickly. And so I ended up painting it. I did a color match for Faro and Ball Sulking Room Pink. And it's not exact because Faro and Ball is the best, and color matches will never work, but it definitely captures kind of what I wanted in here. I had to do a lot of drywall repair before I did that. And yeah, it ended up being a really great place. I love working in here. Between calls, I'll just kind of pause and look at my artwork or look at, something in the room. And it's definitely a space that I don't mind being in, 8-9 hours a day, 5 days a week. So the original light fixture in this room was kind of like a Tiffany, but not actual Tiffany stained glass situation. And I wanted to bring in some brass. And so I found this. I won't even say it because you've heard it so many times. And I wanted to do something different with the bulbs. And I saw Heidi Collier do a similar chandelier in a dining room with the round bulbs instead of, a different, whatever the classic style is. And so, yeah, I love how it turned out. And I went through so many iterations behind the desk of what to do there. Was it kind of, I had this antique shelf, I tried just artwork by itself, but nothing seemed to make sense. So I ended up doing these shelves, and I nailed it. I think that's what it needed in this space, and also can show off all of my tchotchkes. The desk, nothing that exciting, but it was a $50 find that I just ended up painting black. It's a dining room table for sure, and it's great for spreading out all of my notebooks and different things that I have to do throughout the day. And the scale is also right for the room. With a room this size, you want something, to anchor the space that's large enough and solid enough that feels purposeful. So yeah, I think some of my favorite art is in this room, and so I can show you over here. I found this piece at an antique store up in Temple, and I did end up looking up the artist Bonnie Welch, and it's nothing crazy well known, but she's definitely a well-known artist from the 70s, and this was kind of a starting off point for the room as well. You can see that I pulled some of the pinks here, the blues here for the fireplace, which was painted when I got it. I would never. And so I love sort of sitting at the desk and looking at this painting. It reminds me of California. I lived in California for about 5 years. Thankfully, I get to go back for work quite often, but I love that one. And then the last piece of art in this room that I would probably point out is right here. I know nothing about this. I don't know the artist or anything, but I found it in a store in Minnesota as well, and they had it mounted this way. And I also feel like it just goes really well in this room, and it's so different from kind of the other art that I have throughout the house. This feels very modern. This feels very, abstract. So yeah, it's kind of mixing those different pieces. You've got the antiques, you've got the modern, and it can all work together at the end of the day. So yeah, I spend a lot of time in here and I love it. Before you go, if you remember, I mentioned that stamped wood under the stairs from the man who built the house, T. Denton. I want to show you. It's just over here behind many doors. So in here, if you look up high, you can see T. Denton, Bartlett, Texas. It was such a cool find. What's interesting with this house is nobody has shown me, the prior owners didn't point out all these neat things. I sort of had to uncover them and find them myself. And so finding that was really neat. I am a home body. I could not leave this house for 5 days in a row and not even realize it. So home for me, I love to move around too. So home isn't necessarily a certain building, but it's where your things are. It's where, you walk in the door and you can just be yourself. You can be alone. You can be sitting on the couch, watching your trash TV and not feel judged. It's where, you come to be with your pets, your friends, your family. It's a safe space. It's a place to sort of just drop your guard in a way. And then also, if you are into design, if you are into creativity, it's an outlet for that as well. For a lot of people who, are similar to me, who aren't designers, but have such an interest in that. It's that outlet for them. So yeah, home is so important to me, and it doesn't have to be this house. It doesn't have to be, you know, any particular house. It's just a thing where my things are, where I feel safe, where I'm with my pets, where, you know, it's just comfort.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Michelle. Welcome to our Pennsylvania home. These are our loving little pups. Come on in, I'm gonna give you a tour. My name is Michelle Gage. I live in this home outside of Philadelphia with my husband Alex and our 4 rescue pets. We've got our own little Noah's Ark here. We've got 2 dogs, Nally and Harlow, and 2 cats, Wednesday and Tallulah, and I can't wait to show you around. I'm a residential interior designer. I own and operate Michelle Gage Interiors, which is a full-service firm on the main line. We work on projects not only in the suburbs, but also in Philadelphia. So this home was built in 1927. We don't know a ton about who owned it, though I think my husband went back into some records and eventually found a little bit of information, but we know it was a larger home that had more property than what it currently has. It's since been subdivided and other homes have been built on it, but it's a 1927 stone colonial. So the condition of the house was poor at best. It had a lot of issues. You name an issue in the house had it. We had to replace the roof. We did a lot of plumbing work. We needed a new boiler. We had to add AC. All the floors needed to be refinished. There was a lot of plaster work. We're currently working on 4 bathroom renovations. The kitchen needed to be redone. Everything needed to be touched in this house. In hindsight, I would call it unlivable. When we first moved in. However, we moved in, got scrappy, and renovated it while we lived in it. We set out knowing it would take 5 years, and we have 6 months left until we hit the 5-year point, and I think we're gonna hit it. So we are in our entryway, which is lined with art. We've got a lot of art in the home. In this room in particular, we have a couple of great pieces that we got in our travels. Some we picked up on the streets of Mexico or from museums in London. Over here, we have some really fantastic stranger portraits. Oil paintings that are older, and we have lined them on the walls here and up the stairs. We've collected those from local markets or international markets and kind of congregated them all into a little collection to greet you when you enter the home. So I have always been attracted to portraits of other people. This was actually the first one that I got that started it all. I got it at a flea market in Raleigh. And I was really drawn to the colors, the brush strokes, the style of it, and the mystery of like, who is this person? I don't know who any of these people on our walls are. Sometimes that creeps some guests out, but I like that they're all different. They're all from different parts of the world, and they group together to feel like they're the same. They also have a similar hand often, even though they're all painted by different artists. So now we're headed into my living room, which is my favorite room of the house. It houses all of my favorite pieces of art and decor, and it's a really cozy space, and we gotta step down 2 steps to get there. So welcome to my living room. This is the room that really made me fall in love with the house. I found the house late one night on Zillow, and the pictures of the home, the listing photos sold it, but when we got to the house and we got to this space in particular, I was smitten, knew it was the one. I really liked the wide plank floors, the original beams, the original fireplace. These built-ins are actually original to the home as well. And it was just a nice, cozy space with a lot of light, really great character, and I felt like it could house all of the pieces that I've collected over the years, and then the new ones that I'd be bringing into the room as well. So this is definitely the room of things. Obviously, there's places to sit, but frankly, I tend to sit on the sofa, and my dogs tend to get the day bed. It's really just a giant dog bed that they hog all the time. But I sit on the sofa and I kind of gaze at all of my collections from time to time. A lot of the art I've collected over the last 15 years or so. So it has a really special meaning to me. Some of them came from our travels, some of them from artists that I love, some frankly from junk shops and thrift stores. But I've collected them, when I started my art collection till now, where it's evolved. I love collecting art that's in all different shapes and sizes. So we've got a nice grand piece over the fireplace and then some smaller prints flank the side of it. This guy, he's like a different take on stranger art. So that's a photo as opposed to a painting, but he fits in really well with this space. We've got some, brass antlers, some true antlers. I love adding 3D elements like this paper mache crane bust to jump out at you and feel a little bit more lifelike. I love art of all different sizes. So obviously there's the typical frame sizes that you can get just about anywhere, but you can't always find something that's so long. So this is an old circus print. So our gallery wall for this space was a little different than any I've built in another home because it was so tall and it was over a fireplace. So we started the framework by putting this giant piece of art with all of these cats in it. At the time, we didn't actually have cats. We just were drawn to the piece. I feel like we kind of manifested our 2 cats into our life from this. But that was kind of the starting point of the gallery wall, and then we built outward. We incorporated some prints, some originals, some vintage finds, some newer finds, and then 3D elements. Like this is a brass bugle, Boy Scout bugle. My husband was an Eagle Scout, so it has a little nod to that, but frankly, it just looks cool up on a wall. We've got some serious pieces, we've got some, serious portraits or photographs of stern men, but we've also got Kelly Kapowski up there. She was actually purchased after the frame. So I found a great vintage frame. I found a couple great oval frames and I didn't have anything to put in them, but I liked the frames. I liked the depth and the size. So I purchased a Kelly Kapowski print and put that inside. So it's something new and something old and it's kind of cool, but not too serious.
And you're clearly a Saved by the Bell fan.
I'm definitely a Saved by the Bell fan. You can write that on my tombstone. So the room actually kind of started with the gallery wall because I had all the art. I didn't have all this furniture. I had a couple pieces, but some of the furniture was purchased after we moved into the home to mix with some of the existing pieces. But I had never, frankly, had a living room this large or a living room that was this regular in shape. So we needed new pieces to support it. If we turn over here, so some of these pieces came with me from my first home. This great desk, which is old, I actually rescued from my dad's basement. He didn't purchase it, the previous owners purchased it, so we don't really know the story of it, but the basement was not a finished basement, it was just a dungeon space essentially. But when he was moving out, I asked if I could have it. It's one of my favorite pieces. I love the blue color of it. I haven't touched it. I haven't refinished it. Frankly, I don't sit at it, but it was the perfect piece. So it was one of the first pieces that made it into this room, along with this cabinet, which has the same story, rescued from a dingy basement where it got absolutely no love, and really fills this wall out nicely and houses all of our books and some of our trophies. So I did not win any of these trophies. I have no talent or skills that would lend to giving me a trophy, but I've collected them. Maybe that's the talent and skill. I've collected them over the years from various flea markets. This one people ask me, they're like, oh my God, did I break it? No, I think someone ran over it with a car, but that's frankly why I purchased it, because it was kind of wonky and I really liked it, and it's like used feel. This is another favorite. This is a championship match winner from 1912, but I liked this big bad boy, and he looked really beautiful on top of the cabinet. And I think if you love something, getting multiples and really fostering a collection just drives the look of them home so much more. So this guy was a little short, so he needed to be propped up, and sometimes I need to ask Alexa to play music for me. So there's old trophies mixed with new technology from time to time. So a lot of this upholstery, all of it, frankly, is newer. I am all for recovering old pieces, but in this room in particular, we had a lot of old case goods, a lot of old art, a lot of old decor. I didn't want this room to feel too old. So I like to mix old and new. This is just a great linen teal sofa with a tufted back. And then these striped chairs, we get a lot of questions about. They're unfortunately discontinued, but I needed something for this room that you could walk into and still have 2 chairs. So if I put 2 armchairs here, you couldn't really get into this zone so much. So I needed armless chairs, and these striped guys were perfect and they're quite comfortable. This daybed is a favorite piece of mine. Frankly, it's my favorite to look at. I don't get to sit in it that much. Usually it is covered with dog blankets or dogs. They love to sit out this window and bark at anybody who walks down in the neighborhood. So from time to time I get to enjoy it and it looks real cute, but it's just a giant dog bed, frankly. This piece is actually another favorite of mine that is older. It's an old ballot box. I purchased it in Brimfield probably in 2015. It was one of my first big furniture purchases, even though it's not a piece of furniture, it's a ballot box. But I remember I loved, I was drawn to it at the market. It was my first time going to Brimfield. I loved the patina. I loved the mix of, the glass and the metal. I thought it had a really cool story. And I texted my husband and I was like, oh, it's a couple $100. Do you think we can swing it? And he said yes. And at the time that was a huge splurge for me. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite pieces. So these shelves are original to the home. I was really, really excited to find a home that had great built-ins because I had a lot of stuff to fill them with. They got filled one weekend, again, another passion project while we were renovating some other spaces and I needed a creative outlet. I just took my hordes of stuff and filled them. It was probably about 3 years ago and I haven't really moved anything since because it did take a long time to do. But it houses a mixture of books, decor items, lots of little pieces of art in there. There are some cool pieces like these we got in London. They're writing spurs. We picked those up recently. These darts are from a Raleigh flea market, but they're actually Philadelphia darts. So it was cool to go to Raleigh and find something true to Philadelphia. We've got a velvet riding hat down there. More photos of other people's families and children, some cool brass animals, which I love, and then some quirky things like opera glasses and whatnot, spectacles, to kind of add that 3D fun element to the space. My favorite thing about the home is, truthfully, it's this living room. I used a lot of the pieces that we had in our former home for this space. I supplemented by buying a few new pieces, but a lot of the decor that I've collected over the years and a lot of the art I've collected over the years lives in this room. So while this room was only designed a few years ago, it houses a lot of pieces that I've had for the last 15 years that I've searched for and curated. In particular, the gallery wall above the fireplace just has a lot of pieces that I started collecting in my early 20s. So it's really special to see them all over the walls, and this room just feels the most like me. Heading into the sunroom, the doors stick a little old house stuff, but here we go. So this is the sunroom. It was actually an addition that the previous owners added to the house. We're not entirely sure when, but it's not from 1927 like the rest of the home. At one point, we actually seriously considered ripping it out to make sure that the home was all that old 1927 charm. A lot of these pieces are newer, a lot of the materials are newer. However, in the pandemic, we saw things differently and decided to weekend warrior this project. So we changed our mind, decided we're not going to rip it out, we're going to make it another room, and I'm so glad we did because it is my second favorite room in the house. I'll still say the living room's tops, but this room I spend all my summers, all my weekends in the summer in. My animals and I curl up on this day bed nearly every weekend. and I will, flip through design magazines, read, watch shows, but this is a great comfy spot, and it's actually a twin mattress. So if we have guests, they can technically sleep out here comfortably. I've definitely fallen asleep out here a few times, but I've got some pieces for that setup. So we've got a candle and a great table that I can bring snacks or wine out here. We've got a couple other tables for more snacks and more wine, but this table in particular is a really cool old limestone letterpress table. It's covered up by magazines most of the time, but it's a really fun vintage piece that we collected. This dresser is really great because it's a nice size and holds a lot of spare candles, yoga mats. I'll do yoga out here. This room also has some spillover favorite art pieces that I got after the gallery wall was created. I don't really add to that wall much anymore, but these are from Blakely Little. And she's an artist in South Carolina that I really, really love. This is a print of hers, and then that's an original. But I love her hand. I love her use of color. She's quirky, whimsical, and so fun. The piece above the daybed is gray malin, and I was really drawn to the colors and the people swimming and the little rafts that were around all of the reefs there. It's a really great pop of color on that stone wall, given that the rest of the room is that really teal saturated blue. The color is actually Blue Ground by Farrow and Ball, and loved it so much I did it on the walls, trim, and ceiling to make it feel kind of like a giant fishbowl in here. You are on display a little bit with all of the windows, but our neighbors are a little bit further away from us, so no one can really see in. So I chose to leave the windows naked so that I could see all of the trees and everything green outside of them and really enjoy that rather than covering them up for the off chance that one person might peek in here when they're delivering a piece of mail. So this room was a little tricky to decorate because it's super long, and I also needed seating in here, which it was a little tricky with the narrowness of the room. So we kind of divided it into two spaces separated by these doors to the living room. This space over here is actually where my husband kind of sits more because the sofa is quite large and long, and he's a tall fellow, so he can lounge here. And then this side over here is my side where the animals tend to hang out and cuddle. So we broke it out, but still wanted it to be a space where everyone could get together and read. And then we're working on some outside projects right now, but the idea is that if we have people over outside, we open this space up, and it's not truly an indoor-outdoor room, but it's a little bit more casual than the living room, play around a little bit more, and have dual entertaining spaces. I get asked a lot how I would describe my personal style, which is definitely most reflected in my own home as opposed to clients' projects where we try to bring their style in. Artfully bold, eclectically curated, British eccentric is another way that I've recently learned to describe it as I've traveled to London and found some antiques that I like there and realized that maybe all along I've been collecting similar pieces for the home. So I will show you the powder room, but first I'll show you my cat's bathroom, which is this little hobbit hole under the stairs, just to keep it real. Little unsightly, so we can close the door, but we hide our litter boxes under there. But in our powder room, we've got a really great long space here. So it's not too tiny like a powder room would be, but small enough, it's not a full bath. We have the original sink that was left for us, which is fantastic because not only is it really gorgeous, but finding a corner sink that fit perfectly would probably be a very hard bill. So we kept the original sink. We wallpapered with this really great Toile toilet wallpaper for a cheeky little twist on a powder room. These are really ornate toilets, but we're not ornate people, and the Toile is a historic nod, but it's toilets, so it's kind of funny. Above on the ceiling, we have these great light fixtures that I picked up in Brimfield for quite a steal. Two of them flank the ceiling really nicely, and then we retiled the floor and put down a vintage rug, but it's not a fussy space, but it is really nice to have on the first floor and have a little cheeky nod to history and also the fact that it's just a powder room. So this is the dining room. This is one of the first rooms that we actually designed in the house. It was quite square, which it still is now, but we added this built-in. We wanted it to feel somewhat original to the house. We actually added all the molding in here to kind of mimic what it might have looked like in 1927, but we really needed the additional storage. So I house all of my props and vases and extra dishware, candlesticks, and whatnot in these cabinets and pull them for photo shoots or entertaining purposes. But above we have the open shelving as well for all the cookbooks that I never open, all of the serving pieces that I occasionally use, and some extra pieces of art, candlesticks, decor, and whatnot to add some personality to the space. This wallpaper we actually chose. We didn't really consider many other styles for the room. I fell in love with this one like right as it came out. I really liked it because it reminded me of a trip to Capri, though I later found out that these are not lemons, they're golden pomegranates, but it reminded me of the lemons in Capri, and it was really fresh and funky. It played to the greenery that's outside these windows, which again, we've chosen to keep naked because our neighbors are just a little bit further away. So we're really surrounded by all of these trees. And I wanted to enjoy that rather than covering up those views. Our cats love to sit in front of the windows as the sun pours in, and I didn't want to deprive them of that either. We decided to add 2 chandeliers because again, the space was quite large and I wanted to play that up. We recently rehomed our original table that seated 10 to 12 people because frankly, we don't seat 10 to 12 people very often, if ever, and opted for a table that was a little bit more traditional, a little smaller, and had these great rounded corners to it, so it fit the space a little bit better. We added some sconces for additional lighting in the room. I love putting art over wallpaper, so whether it's a black and white print or something that truly only works on the wallpaper together, couldn't really work anywhere else. So this is a vintage portrait from 1946 that I picked up, I believe it was in New York somewhere. And I fell in love with that lady. I loved her little teal jumpsuit, her brooch, and her nails, and she worked perfectly with the color palette of the dining room, so she got hung here. She looks like Alex's grandmother a little, so I call her Lois, though his grandmother doesn't know that, so if she watches this, she'll find out. So this bar cart is one of my favorite pieces, just because it's so grand. Usually you see dinky, tiny little bar carts, and this one is truly like a bar serving station. I've got a bunch of decanters on top and a couple pots with no plants in them because I do not have a green thumb, and some magazines in the middle. So it's not strictly alcohol serving. We have a butler's pantry for that, but I loved the size and the scale. Fun thing that I like to do when I travel is I visit a lot of museums, and I was at the Royal Academy in London, and I love to visit the gift shops. Because the gift shops, while you might think just have like kitschy things, they actually have really beautiful artisan pieces. So we got a couple of these seed pods, ceramic seed pods. So I love to keep them on the bar cart, as well as some busts. So this is actually a planter, and then this is a bust that I got at a local vintage market. I don't know who it is. I don't know why they made it. It is quite large, but I saw it and I knew I had to have it, and it has sat there ever since. So these chairs I picked up recently from an estate sale, and they were completely sunken in, so much so that when we brought them home, my cats loved to sit in the center of them because they were like a little cat hammock. They had no foundation to the seat. I don't know how the previous owners ever used them. So we had them reconstructed. The bases were redone by the upholstery shop, and then we did a great pink velvet for a nice pop in this space. This space is very blue, green, and white, lots of brown, so I wanted to break that up. Sometimes I feel like pink can act as a neutral, and in this case it definitely does. And then we chose a velvet because it's really easy to clean. Heading into the butler's pantry now, you will see that the wallpaper repeats in this space as well, to tie those two spaces together. But this room, as opposed to the dining room, is a little bit moodier, a little bit darker, kind of speakeasy vibes, whereas the dining room's quite bright. This is our butler's pantry. I really, really love this space because it ties the kitchen into the dining room and gives us a great vehicle for entertaining. The cabinets are a custom color. It's Vardo Teal by Benjamin Moore, and I agonized over this color for a long time and ultimately landed here, and I'm very, very happy that I did. We've got some closed cabinets below where we keep, some platters, some wine, some cleaning supplies, truthfully. And then above is a great storage place for all of my pitchers and glassware and anything that I break out for entertaining or truly put flowers in. We've got a little bit of a bottle opener obsession. So we have a lot of funky pieces. We've got a hand that we picked up in Italy. This is a pretzel, which is kind of a nod to Philadelphia. Got a lemon squeeze, and a couple other really cool accoutrements.
Who's this?
This is a king, but he also opens your bottle, which most kings would not do, but this one does. These are actually bottle openers too. They've got little parts on the bottom that open up your bottle, and so is this snow crab, shoe crab?
It's a horseshoe crab.
Horseshoe crab. This horseshoe crab is also a bottle opener. And then here's another ashtray, which nobody smokes in this house, but just a really cool use of color, graphic in nature, and I love to collect them to put little items on. So the other thing that I like to collect when I can are these little stirrup cups. They have little fox or wolf faces, animal faces on them. Large or small, pick your poison, but they were used when men used to go out riding. They would put their drinks in them and gallop along on their horses with their cups of whatever their choice of beverage was. So this is another fun piece in our butler's pantry that I commissioned from an artist locally. Her name is Sarah Coote, but I sent Sarah a photo of my elopement to Alex because it was just the two of us. We didn't have anyone there. We had some photography, but I wanted something a little bit more special to remember it. So I had her paint this in her hand, and it is one of my favorite pieces of art. From the butler's pantry, we're gonna go into the kitchen. The kitchen was completed at the end of 2019, right before the pandemic, which was truthfully the best timing because we had been needing to renovate the kitchen for a few years, had been putting it off. And luckily when we went into lockdown, we had this space to cook all of our meals and hang out as a family of animal lovers. So I knew that I wanted a pale blue kitchen. I had visited London for a week and we stayed at a really beautiful property that had a gorgeous pale blue kitchen, and I just fell in love. I also wanted inset cabinets, which is a little bit more European. So we landed on these, love them. We added these latches to the upper cabinet, which I'm told makes them a little bit more difficult to use, but I think they're quite charming. And then we did a seamless backsplash and hid all of our outlets underneath the upper cabinets so that you truly have that seamless look. We're quite pleased with the renovation. We did it ourselves. Actually, my husband and I did the demo work, and then he installed the cabinetry, which was definitely more taxing than we realized going into it, but the whole house was more taxing than we realized going into it. So we're happy to be showing it off because we're kind of at the other side. This range we got from Italy, which I just loved the way that it looked. Being not much of a chef myself, I wasn't really too concerned with how it functioned, which it functions okay. But I really liked the look of it. I thought it was a nice pop for the space. So we brought this guy in. The floors are original to the home. They're original to the space, and we really wanted to make sure that we kept some character. Ideally, this would have been a room where we could use what was in the space, bring it to life in a modern way. But frankly, nothing was really salvageable in here besides the floors. And we had to unearth them under a bunch of linoleum. So we were happy to keep them, but they are the only truly old thing in this room. Everything else we brought in is newer. We love the idea of having a vintage rug in the space. It brings a lot of color, and our animals congregate here 23 hours of the day. So we wanted a space that was a nice soft space for them. If we're hanging out in here, if we're eating, if we're putting away groceries, preparing food, coming home for the day. So they all congregate here. After the renovation was completed, we realized that we needed a little table area in addition to having the dining room. So Alex built this where we store just 2 stools underneath, and then we can use this as a butcher block, a cutting board as well. So it serves double duty. It's all scratched up, but it feels really nice to warm up the space. And then we wind up eating dinner there most nights, honestly. So one thing that I really wanted in this space, it kind of came together after the whole kitchen was renovated, was a gallery wall of dog art. So I love gallery walls, I love art, and I love my dogs. These are our 2 dogs. We actually commissioned this painting of them and put them in like little preppy J. Crew clothes as we envisioned they would be if they were real humans, which sometimes we think they are, but they are absolutely not. So I had the piece painted and then I put it in a really ornate frame because I thought it was just hilarious that my dogs would be in an ornate frame, and tried to make it feel like an older piece. We added some art around it that had dog motifs in it, including these dog busts. And it's just above their feeding and water station, but it's something that when we enter in through the house, through the mudroom, we see every day, and it just makes me smile because how cute is that? So we had this blank wall in our kitchen that I struggled with for a while because there were so many doorways and access points to it. So I couldn't put cabinetry here. I couldn't put a table here. There really wasn't much I could do to have anything protrude off of the wall. So we did this shaker peg rail. Turned out to be the best thing for the space because we can hang jackets, aprons, gardening shears on this wall quite conveniently. And then above, I've styled it with some artwork. So one of my favorite pieces of art that actually I just purchased is this painting by Shelby Monteverde, who I really love. I have a few of her pieces, originals and prints, but this one in particular, I watched her starting to paint it on Instagram, and I messaged her and I asked her if this was going to be something that she was going to make available for sale. And I think at the time she was just dabbling and wasn't too sure. But the reason I really wanted it and felt super personal to me is because we have a lot of strawberries in this house, and I cut the tops off every time I eat them, and I feed them to my dogs. So they actually, if I bring out a bowl of strawberries, they will congregate around me. They flock to me. They start drooling and begging for the strawberries. And I loved that these weren't strawberries. They were strawberry tops. And it just felt super personal to my experience with my dogs, but it was also cute and quirky. And I just love her work. So I swooped it right up when it became available. So then this is my gallery wall of stranger portraits that I've collected over the years. This one I picked up in France about 5 years ago. And it's a general or a sergeant, but really cool. And then I love this woman. She's one of my favorites. I found her at an estate sale in Philadelphia. I've been collecting them for a few years, but only recently learned that if they've got these old circular nails on the side, that means that they are much older, truly antique, as opposed to some that I've collected which have staples on the side that are newer. You can kind of tell by looking at them which the old and the new are, but if you are uncertain based on the condition, you can take a look at the nails on the side and how the canvas is constructed. So we're about to head into the primary bedroom, but first I want to point out some of our photos that are outside of the bedroom, which are all of these great black and white yard longs. It's kind of another twist on stranger art, but this is photography as opposed to painting. So I've collected these over the years from various markets or estate sales. And a lot of times they'll tell you what either the school, the academy, the group, the workplace is, and I always find that really interesting. So I've looked for a bunch in all of my thrifting and antiquing adventures, and recently completed this wall, which felt like a really big accomplishment because finding pieces and growing it when you had a set structure to fit within was not the easiest task. But it's recently been completed and I am so thrilled. What is it about collecting pictures of other people and other people's families? I'm not so sure. I think it's the touch like the nod to history that gets me. I'm not a big history buff, but I do really enjoy the old feel of whether it's art or objects or furniture. And it's a little creepy, which I also like. I love color, print, and pattern, but there's another side of me that definitely leans into something that's a little weirder, a little darker, and these kind of fill that darkness vibe. So now we are in the primary bedroom, which actually used to be 2 rooms, but the previous owners had demolished the wall in between the 2 and turned it into 1. So rather than putting the walls back up, we went with it. We have over here a really great sitting area. These chairs I rescued from somebody who was selling them online, and they were a faded red velvet, but the shape was so cool. And I sent my husband out to go grab them. The seller said he had so many people interested, but nobody was showing up. So we went in the middle of a work day to go grab them and snagged them for a steal, and then recovered them in this really great lavender velvet and added some really fun fringe to them as well. I call them the gossip chairs because I just envision 2 ladies or gentlemen sitting here and chatting and gossiping and having some snarky conversations in these really wonderful chairs, but they're 2 of my favorite pieces of furniture in the whole house. So then I have a real grown-up vanity here, which is such a treat to flank this wall. With the room being so large, we had to really get clever with what pieces we would bring into this space to still have it be a bedroom, but also fill the wall space. One of the ways we did that to make the whole space feel cohesive, even though it's a little disjointed with remnants of the old wall, is to wallpaper all of the walls. When we first moved in, we actually had it painted. And it just didn't feel right. I love wallpaper, I love print and pattern, and the room just kind of was missing something. So we added this really great wallpaper, these flying blue cranes, which at the time we weren't totally sure we would love given the fact that it was a huge space. But once the first roll went up, we knew that we were making the right decision. So over here, I've got another collection. These are a bunch of bugs. So again, leaning into that a little bit weirder, creepier side. I picked these up at a Brooklyn flea market. Those are real bugs. Not going to attempt to embarrass myself and read their names off. But you can tell what kind of bugs they are if you look close enough. So they're framed in shadow boxes. I picked those up, and I had already collected a couple pieces that kind of fit this vibe. So I threw it all together in a little gallery wall. This is just a piece off of Cherish, but this is a great color pop for a beetle. And then this is a piece from a site called Well and Wonder that does a lot of great original pieces of art from fantastic artists. And I purchased that one to have the real bugs and also artistic renditions of bugs. So then this is the sleep space. You can see my dog really leans hard into that idea. But I wanted it to be really open and airy and cozy over here. So we've got sconces on the wall so that we can keep the nightstands clear for books or vases or any, face potions, candles and whatnot. And then we have a really simple bed, simple cozy bed that is just ultra comfortable for myself, my husband, and all of our fur children. I layered rugs here because, again, the space was so large and we really needed to figure out how to make it not feel as large as it is. It had to feel cozy, but it also couldn't feel too disjointed. So I really loved the color that this rug brought into this space, but when I found it, it wasn't large enough and it didn't come in a larger size. So a tip that I always like to do, whether it's a new rug or a vintage rug, if it's not the right size, is to layer it with the proper size jute. So I picked this jute rug up and I really like the additional texture that it brings into the space and how it all works together to create a little sleep space inside of this larger room. So a lot of the clothes that we have are housed in a larger walk-in closet, but this dresser houses some of the foldable clothes, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't overly decorate the bedroom, but also paid service to the surfaces. So we've got another piece of stranger art here. This one is a naked lady, which looks really great. And I love the colors. She was picked up in Brimfield. I added a little vintage mirror beside her and then a newer lamp, but I recovered this shade in a cool block print fabric just so it wasn't white and boring, and it was a print that popped off of the wallpaper print. The last thing I want to show you in this space is another piece by Shelby Monteverde that I fell in love with. She recently did a whole swan series, and I find art all over, whether it's newer, commissioned, higher end, lower end, and this piece just spoke to me. It's one of the pricier pieces that I've purchased for my home, but I knew once I saw it that I loved it and I would love it for a very long time. So I love her hand. I think she's a fantastic talent, and I thought that that piece would just be one that would travel through all of my stages of life, whether I stayed here forever or moved house. So this is my office. It's my home office. It's a smaller space in the house that really couldn't serve any other function, just with the doorways and the way it was laid out. So we made it a little office hub. I added all of these great floral paintings and prints into a gallery wall to kind of take advantage of the space above the desk. I didn't want to clutter it up with shelving. I didn't want to hang one or two pieces. I wanted to explode my personality into this space. So we've got some older pieces, some prints, some newer pieces, but all of the floral variety hung here, and a little extra space if I did choose to add to it. So this is our laundry space. It was previously, this hallway was two closets. So one closet that belonged to my now office and another just utility closet in the hall. It wasn't being utilized fully, and the washer and dryer were downstairs in the kitchen. So when we renovated the kitchen, we brought the washer and dryer up to be on the main floor where all the dirty clothes go, and took out these two closets and built this in. Got a sink for hand washing, which is like the worst chore in the world to me, but this makes it a little bit better. And we've got washer, dryer, and then just one cabinet for some detergents and dryer sheets, a little hanging space if there is anything that needs to hang dry. But it's super functional and really took advantage of an underutilized space and made it ultra functional. So now we're headed into my husband's office, which we've dubbed the study. So this is Alex's office. This actually used to be my interior design studio. When it became my interior design studio, we vaulted the ceiling and exposed the stone wall. So actually, when we moved in, the ceiling was flat and the wall was drywalled. However, because it was going to turn into a place of business, we wanted it to feel different than the rest of the house. So in order to do that, we vaulted the ceiling in here. So this used to be attic space. And then we exposed this stone wall in the process and turned it into a space that feels a little different than the rest of the house. I used to run my design business out of here, but since we've moved out of the house into a commercial space, it's become Alex's office, or what we sometimes dub as his upstairs living room. So it's kind of his man cave, but I had a hand in decorating some of it where I was permitted. So we've got this great vintage velvet sofa, which I love. There's actually 3 different blues in here. So it's kind of a mix and match piece. He's got his own collections, which are vintage tools, lots of vintage books, just lots of things that I have asked to spread throughout the house, but he likes to keep his collections all together. So I feel like a lot of times you get slack for not letting your husband put his stuff all throughout the house, when in fact I actually beg him to put it all throughout the house, and he likes to hoard it to himself and have little museum displays, as he says. We've got this great leather chair, which is completely worn in from him, the dogs, and the previous person that we purchased it from. And then a great rug. The rug is not vintage. However, we wanted something vintage. He wanted something vintage. So what we actually did, which is what you don't do when buying a rug, is we didn't put a rug pad under it. If you put a rug pad under it, it gives your rug a little bit more longevity. It makes it last longer. However, he wanted it to feel tattered over time. So without putting a rug pad under it, it will definitely wear worse over time, which is actually what he was looking for. We've got the great exposed stone wall, and then a collection of some of his books in this great vintage cabinet. And another place where he keeps his collections are in this museum display case, which was a recent find, and he keeps all of his smaller pieces here, and we've adequately dubbed it the museum.
Amazing that two collectors met and married each other.
It's either amazing or it's like completely disastrous, because now we can never move. It will take so much manpower to pack everything up and move. This piece is actually an old map of the main line. Our house is on here somewhere, but it's an older map, and we found it at a local flea market, and I had it framed for him for his birthday in museum glass, so that it is a little bit nicer than your typical glass frame. So this is a piece that we really treasure because we were looking for our house on the map for a while, and we finally found it. One of my absolute favorite pieces in this room is the chandelier, which we got last year from an estate in Rhode Island. So we eloped in Newport, Rhode Island on a whim. We were engaged at the time, but I was looking to leave my job, start a business, and also have that health insurance. So we Googled best places to elope on the East Coast. I gave my 2 weeks notice, and to Newport we went. So Newport has a special place in our heart, and we visit it every so often, every few years. And on our last trip, we found this piece, which we just love. At the time, we were already reworking this room to be Alex's office, and I had a beaded, colorful chandelier in here, and I knew he wouldn't live with that long term. I knew we'd be constantly looking for a piece, so it barely fit in our car on the way home. But I told him if we didn't get it then, we'd be looking for years and years. So that's a really fun piece for us to have in this space that looks like him and is designer approved. I think the word home means something different to me now than it did even when I bought my first home or moved into this home. To me, it really means safety and freedom of expression. I feel the most at home, not only in my home, but in this room in particular, because it is just like me splashed all over the walls. I really like that I can sit in this room, whether it's by myself, with an animal, with my husband, with friends and family, and everything that I see in this room speaks to my personality, and it's like accepted in this room. And I just feel like that just like is the coziest feeling to me.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.